Good morning, everybody. It's the 9:03 a.m. agenda review. Getting everything set here. Go ahead and ask to turn your cell phones to vibrate, silence, or off setting. Commissioner Matt, you have the invocation this evening?
Yes, sir. I'll take care of that.
Okay, great. Commissioner Prakash, you want to lead us in the pledge?
Absolutely. Happy to do so.
Are there any items to be added to the agenda? Madam Attorney?
No, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I have an add-on. I think it has been distributed. It's basically it's ratifying a letter. It doesn't necessarily. It's really just from the District 5 office, but I would like for for it to become part of the record.
Okay.
I'll have two discretionary, and then I will have a letter that we talked about in committee of the whole.
Perfect.
Nothing for me.
I don't have anything, Madam Administrator.
Any additions were provided yesterday afternoon and were reposted through Civic Clerk.
So just to let everybody at home know, so any, they've been talking about this for a while, is that as we go through the week, sometimes there might be updates or changes or even add-ons. So that is now added. We're able to repost the agenda that's been added through this new programming.
Yes, sir.
And I believe any changes are also highlighted. Is that correct?
If it has not been highlighted, we will definitely make sure that we have this before the January meeting. There were a couple of revised backups to agenda items, and then there was a new recommendation for a restore grant for the Cantonment Community Center. So we are going to make sure that we have that corrected for the public view by the January one. Okay. So people don't have to go through all of the agenda items to find any changes.
Okay. And so as we said, this is a new system for everybody up here, and might have little kinks here and there today, but well, we will. I mean, it allows us to do voting, but it's more of a backroom programming that came with the voting system, and we end up saving money in the end. So over the things that we had already been purchasing. So. Commissioners Forum, Commissioner Berry?
Nothing, Mr. Chairman.
I have nothing.
Nothing this morning.
Okay. Just real quick, I just want to, well, first, I think she wasn't with us last time, but Madam Clerk, congratulations on your reelection. We've recognized everybody up here, but also want to thank your staff, especially Holly Reese, Tammy Plant, and our Neighborhood and Human Services Department, Claire Long and Meredith Reeves, for the long hours they've put in on getting the Family Cares money out. I know they've been spending weekends here making sure that the checks go out, and and also, of course, Claire's team as we process those and come in through issues that they're working with the citizens to help resolve those. Also, we've started our Keep the Wreath Green fire safety campaign again in the city of Pensacola, and there are 5 at city fire stations, 21 at county fire stations, as well as here at this building and a few other places. And that, of course, that anytime there's a residential fire with damage, they replace a green light with a red one to remind citizens of the danger posed by fires in residential homes. So, of course, we hope that everyone has a safe Christmas holiday and takes all precautions regarding space heaters and things like that. Also a reminder, if you need smoke alarms, you can let us know and we can help get those installed. Madam Administrator, do you have anything?
Yes, sir. I just wanted to mention that you asked, Marie Mott has come back if there were any questions related to COVID today. We have sent out a notice. Tanya's here that she can just address it if we need to. We are going to be trying to go back to full service with our buses in the middle of middle to the end of January, and then also fares. And then we are going to be requiring that riders on the bus wear masks starting on December 21st. And Tanya's more than able to discuss that if there's any discussion. We have put a temperature checker in our lobby now with protocol set for that. We are working to put one in the COC for citizens and any staff that may need to go there and have their temperature checked throughout the day as well, which matches what we have at public safety and other places. And the only thing I wanted to mention is that I know that we are continuing to go through our debris removal, and some of you might start getting calls about the orange piles. Pat Johnson and John Hoyle are here if we have any questions about that. I'll be having a call with the debris haulers next week to talk through that process as well, because there are FEMA regulations on what those piles can or cannot be, that can or cannot be picked up. And so I would just mention that.
Okay. Perfect. Okay. Sam, you want to go ahead?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, everyone. Presentations this evening, we have the Winterfest holiday visit.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
were we going to let the health department go first, or are we going through the agenda first? On COVID.
Sure. Oh, yeah. We'll go ahead and let her go on then.
And I see Sandra Smiley is here as well from Community Health. I think that she was going to give us an update on the testing that we provided funding for.
Yes, and I did also want to give you an update. On Monday, I believe we had 9 employees that had been tested positive, and we are up to 15 as of yesterday afternoon.
Okay. Marie, you want to?
Also, I need a pen.
Dad did bring in a PowerPoint this morning. For you, it is pretty much very similar to the one that I presented earlier in the week. So, generally updated the daily case reports and percent positivity, which you saw a little bit of a spike in the returns yesterday, and that percent positivity is still hovering around that 9% mark. Mainly here to see if there's any additional questions I can elevate or answer, and kind of see where we are in terms of what the needs are from you.
Well, I just wanted to share an interesting statistic that I think we heard last week, and I just want to draw attention to it so everyone realizes. But I think they said that 25% of the hospitalizations that we're seeing are with people under the age of 30. And so I just want to call that out to remind the younger people that it's not just you're younger and you can probably sustain this better. I mean, 25% of the hospitalizations are people under the age of 30.
Right.
And so it is important that everyone take it seriously. Of course, we're still having this conversation, 8-9 months into it, but of course we are seeing a uptick in cases in the area, and I think our hospitalization has tripled since our low from the beginning of November, and we do want everybody to have a safe and be able to enjoy their holidays and be at home. So it's important that we follow the guidelines that are out there.
And that's a great point, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for making it. Well, I'm still concerned. How are we being successful in our contact tracing? And certainly, I know we have the dashboard, but as my colleague just indicated, that the age of positives are coming in younger people, and not necessarily nursing homes. What are we utilizing to publicly, particularly educate the young people? Because I know that we've had to close down some schools. UWF has extended its holiday season. Is there anything that we're doing, or is there anything we can do?
Definitely continuing to share those messages and encourage people to, if they are exposed or have a confirmed case, themselves to share that information with the people that they may have exposed. You know, that you can certainly do that as an individual. And then we also, I believe as I mentioned Tuesday, the state has launched an app, a phone app for assistance with contact tracing. So anybody that has been tested in Florida and their cases are entered into Merlin, that's part of the process. If that case information includes a phone number, they get a push to sign up for the Healthy Together app. And that application enables them to go in and put some of the initial information in if they so choose. That helps with contact tracing. And also gives them a little bit of education as to how they, you know, would be recommended to behave to prevent the spread or minimize the spread.
So is there any more information, Maria, that, like, I read the Orlando Sentinel and some of the task force information that may not be what we're putting on the dashboard. Is there other information that can be put out or other findings that the task force, the Florida Task Force has that we've not been able to discuss? Or is there a way to put that information, that the findings of the task force, can we put that out, or do you have the ability to put that out?
I'm not sure. I'd have to check into that.
Okay. It's just, I don't know if you read the Orlando Sentinel article about some of the findings that the task force found in that article that was pretty alarming. And I just know that that information had been shared locally as well. So I'm wondering, is there other information as it relates to the COVID-19 that that has not been provided or hadn't put out?
Yeah, not that I'm aware of, but you know, I'll check into the article you're talking about and see if I can't trace that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Sure. Madam Administrator, just going through some emails real quick. It looks like we added on Wednesday, so yesterday, the Healthy Together to our daily update. But maybe we can go ahead and include a push out a story about that as part of our efforts, so that it helps the Department of Health with contact tracing and again, people getting information. And just real quick, Merlin is the system that the state uses to track their cases. So as test results come back, they get entered into the state, and that's what then populates these daily reports that we see. Is that correct?
Correct. The dashboards, the daily reports.
The dashboards and
all of that comes from the Merlin system.
And that's where anyone who goes to the Escambia County's dashboard, I was surprised how many people didn't know we had a dashboard that we've had for months.
Yeah.
We pull all that data from DOH and from our hospitals and things like that and compile it. So it's more of just a compilation of data that we collect, not necessarily our own data, but and so it's where all that information comes from. Okay.
And I know we talked about this Tuesday, but you said there's not any real large pockets in terms of the contact tracing where we're finding, you know, or school or nightclubs or anywhere where we're finding a disparity in the amount of positives that we're finding in large groups. Do you have any of that data at all?
I mean, not that we've really seen. It's because you know there's so much cross interaction. Tracing things back to one single place is a little bit difficult. I think as a general across the nation, I'm seeing reports of people spreading within families,
Right.
Especially around the holidays. So that's definitely something to be vigilant about, is you know who we are close to over the next few weeks and how we can mitigate any spread that way. But in terms of one particular thing rising up as an issue, I can't say we've seen that.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Mr. Chairman, when she's finished, do you mind if Ms. Smiley would be able to give a report on the testing?
That'd be great. Just real quick, I want to ask, again, we mentioned the vaccine a little bit on Tuesday. It sounds like the Naval Hospital might be getting some of the vaccine. But again, we haven't had any update on when we're getting ours. I think I did see something where the governor said that possibly every citizen in an assisted living facility could be vaccinated by the end of the year. I didn't know if that's still included the Panhandle or not.
Right.
You know?
Well, I would say that it's my understanding there may be some private entities that may get some vaccine to be able to help with the long-term care.
Long-term care, okay. Well, that, of course, if that's the case, that's great for everyone that's living in those. As we have seen, those are the hardest hit areas, and hopefully we can, of course, get those under control, so.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. If
Yeah.
there's not anything else, then we'll go ahead and hear Ms. Smiley talk about our testing.
Rob,
So-
let me just do, Maria,
Sure.
I mean, obviously, we see the trend across the country. Does that lend itself to Escambia County that the COVID-19 has more adversely affected the minority community in Escambia County? Or what are those?
I didn't pull that, I didn't pull that slide. That used to be in here, and,
Yeah, you've seen it before.
but I can
And I'm just
double-check
wondering,
that.
are we, obviously, we're a microcosm. I'm wondering, are we following the trends as well?
And I would have to double check that. I haven't followed that in the last week or two. It's been fairly typical historically, but I can get that to you
Is
as
there,
well.
Commissioner, if
Okay,
you want, I can, it looks like of our 16,000 cases, 45% have been white, 20% black, 12% other, and 23% unknown. If that's,
Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
anything? Okay,
Oh, no, I'm just waiting on Ms. Smiley. I'm
Okay.
good.
perfect. Thank you, Marie, for coming again.
Thanks, Maria.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Just to give you an update on the mobile testing, we have, back in October 5th, we deployed the rapid testing in partnership with Sacred Heart. We're certainly seeing a higher percentage of positives with the rapid test, simply because individuals who are being rapid tested are those who are symptomatic or have had a prolonged exposure. So out of all of the rapid tests that we've conducted to date, it's about 3,500 tests, and it's about a 20% positive rate combined. It's pretty consistent with what we're seeing, what Sacred's seeing. Overall, when you combine rapid with our send-out testing, for the month of November, each week, it's been about 13%, 14%, 12%. So overall, for the month of November, it's about 10.8%. So it's pretty consistent, I think, with what you're seeing throughout the county. We have been working very closely with Ms. Gilly and Elizabeth on getting the invoices in for the rapid. The challenge that we've had is that the production of the test, initially they were anticipating a production of about 10 million a month. They were actually ended up producing about 4 million a month, so it created some challenges in us getting the product in. We've been working very closely with our representative. We're on the national priority list, so we are getting product in. As a matter of fact, within the last 9 days, we got about 320-something kits, which got us to about 60% of where we need to be. So I'm hopeful that by the end of the year, if things hold the way they have the last 9 days, we should get pretty close to the 20,000 that we originally projected.
Yeah, and obviously, we want to thank you for your continued, support in that regard. We will talk later about CARES, and Chandra's project is one of the ones that we will probably continue to fund into the year. Our goal, though, is to make sure that we have enough money in that program, so we've not asked her to stop getting those kits in. So when we get to the CARES funding conversation, we'll explain how we intend to continue to pay. But we do still need as many invoices as you can get to us. I know that, because we would really like to have that closed out by with the clerk's office by the 21st, as many as we can. So, but she's been a great partner, and I'm just very thankful for all that they've done for us whenever we've called on them and needed them to help us with testing as well.
Thank you.
No, I think it's great that of course, early on, we were one of the first places to have drive-through testing, and then a second location with drive-through testing. So it sounds like some counties to the east are trying to use that same model for the vaccination. Some are even doing test runs with flu vaccines. And I also know that Justin and his team, they're going to be helping over in Mobile as they start to get the vaccine in and can learn some of that process. So I'm glad they get to go over there and work with that hospital system to get practice. Commissioner May?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sandra, how close are you to spending all of the dollars that we allocated?
So we're about 60% there, so I think the total amount was $749, if I'm not mistaken. So we are aggressively working to get in as much of the invoices as we can by the end of
And
the
it's
year.
still the plan to go ahead and try to get as many kits as we can, even if it's beyond the date? Do you project that you may end up with a shortage, or do you feel like you're going to have adequate supplies as we go into the spring? winter and the
Yeah, I
spring?
actually had a conversation with our representative the other night, and we went ahead and added some additional orders in the queue beyond the 20,000, just to make sure that if we went into the summer months or the late spring, that we would have orders there for us.
Like the administrator and the chairman, I just want to thank you. I mean, obviously, you know, COVID's hit my office, and it was a panic and a scare, and your office was right there to help us, and I know you've helped other departments on the fourth floor, so I want to personally thank you for you and your staff. I mean, not only you, I mean, you have a great staff, and just being concerned, so I certainly appreciate all the help. And as my colleague said, when I talked to my other friends who are commissioners, they envy having a HQC or community health that's doing the aggressive testing and proactive things that you're doing. So I certainly appreciate everything that's happening in your department. Have we been able to test our ECAT drivers? I know there was a big scare in ECAT, which really concerns me. I'll talk to Tanya about that later, but
We
have
are
we tested
working
our
with
ECAT?
ECAT on getting employees scheduled for testing. I think
Has it started
yesterday.
yet? Has it started yet?
Yeah, I think it started yesterday.
Okay, because they've had a systemic problem. They've had quite a few people. So whatever help you can do with ECAT, we appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I don't have anything else.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner May.
All right.
All right, thanks, Sean.
Thank you, Ms. Smiley.
Thank you. All right, Sam?
Our second presentation this evening will be a Spirit of Community Award presented by Kelly Skiba, Executive Director of the Florida Commission on the Status of Women, to Zanani Johnson. And proclamations this evening. We have the proclamation commending and congratulating Janice Costin, a customer service technician in the Building Services Department, on her selection as Employee of the Month for December 2020. Jennifer Hampton will be presenting. And to ratify the proclamation dated November 12, 2020, commending and congratulating James Brown on his retirement effective November 12, 2020. And then retirement proclamations. We have the retirement proclamation commending Rufus Smith III, Risk Analyst with the Human Resources Department, for 32 years of dedicated service. Mark Bartlett will be presenting. And ratifying the retirement proclamation commending Belinda Govina, Human Resources Supervisor with the Human Resources Department, for 26 years of dedicated service. And we have the years of service recognition to recognize with a pin and certificate Connie Jones, custodial worker, for her dedication and 25 years of service to Escambia County. And I believe she will not be able to attend this evening. And then we have our written communication item.
Mr. Chairman, would you like for me to run through this?
Please go ahead. I think, Jeff, is this in your district, I think? It is. Okay. Yeah, go, please, Madam Attorney.
Okay. The request is from a Ms. Brewer regarding a property she owns at 6227 Dallas Avenue. This particular property is in District 1. Ms. Brewer is seeking relief from one code enforcement lien. She currently owns this property. There was a special magistrate hearing back in September 2013 that created the lien. However, at that time, The lien was actually on a property owned by Mr. Ricky Sapp, and that property was 2710 Midland Park Avenue. At the time, Mr. Sapp also owned 6227 Dallas Avenue, the property in question. So because of the way our code enforcement liens work, the lien attached to all of Mr. Sapp's property. The name Mr. Sapp may ring a bell. They owned many properties. Mr. Sapp eventually lost 6227 Dallas Avenue through the tax deed process. It eventually landed by quitclaim deed in Ms. Brewer's hands in March of this year. However, because at the time that the other property had the violation in the lien, that lien still attaches to 6227 Dallas Avenue. Earlier this year in September, Ms. Brewer put in a request with our administrator for a request from multiple code enforcement liens on multiple properties. In exchange for payment of $5,000, the administrator granted that relief for a total of over $182,000 worth of code enforcement lien relief. However, because of the circumstances involved here, because the original property that had been out of compliance, owned by Mr. Sapp, 2710 Midland Park, is still not in compliance. And therefore, the administrator did not have authority under your policy to grant any relief relative to that lien, which that lien attaches to 6227 Dallas Avenue, which is a long story, but the gist of it is there's still a lien on 6227 Dallas Avenue. Ms. Brewer is currently the owner, and she would like relief from the lien that is actually originating on 27110 Midland Park, which, according to my notes, I think Tim is here, but it appears as though the other property is still non-compliant and is still accruing daily fines.
Who owns that one on Midland Park right now, though? Does she own that one as well?
I don't believe she owns it, but I'm sorry, I'm not
So
positive.
there are fees accrued.
That property is still owned, and Mr. Sapp still lives there, and that's
Well,
the nature of that violation.
So she, through no fault of her own, is accruing this lien on a property she doesn't own on Midland Park in District 5.
That's correct.
That doesn't seem fair to me. Does it seem fair to anyone here on this dais? I mean, how much is it total? What's the grand total?
So that lien is currently around $22,000 and still accruing daily.
Yeah, and actually, as of December 10th, it looks like there were $26,100 in daily fines that had accrued. It's $10 a day since October the 18th of 2013.
How come we're not?
And there were court costs.
How come we're not charging the owner of that property for this? How come this is?
So when this started, it had spidered, Mr. Sapp did own this property as well when this all started.
Sure.
And so that lien has spidered to this property, and it's changed hands several times because of the tax deed sale. So that spidering of this code enforcement lien has still attached to this property.
It just doesn't seem fair to me, guys. I mean, she doesn't own that property. She has no control over what he does on Midland. So we talked a little bit about this. What's an equitable?
So you can do in regards, you have a lot of discretion here. You can do a partial release of the lien, specifically saying that partial release is you are severing 6227 Dallas Avenue from the underlying lien against Mr. Sapp's other property, and just say, boom, that's all you're going to do. Don't charge her anything for it. We're sorry. Move along your way. You can also, in exchange for helping clean up her title, say that you'll do that conditioned on payment of some amount of money.
How much of those 26 grand are hard costs?
The only hard costs appeared to be court costs, which were originally memorialized as $1,100. As you know, by policy, you guys are reducing those by half.
So it'd be like about $600, $550. We could make her pay that in exchange for us releasing her from that lien on that property she doesn't own and has no control over. I mean, what a nightmare.
You could do it that way, correct?
Yeah, I mean, that seems like a fair way to do it.
Right. Obviously, I totally agree with everything you're saying. In a perfect world, these things are caught at the time the conveyance of the property.
Sure, understood.
So that these things the idea would be that it would get cleaned up, and somehow in the midst of all that cleaning up, the county gets its money back. And
we still have a lien on the Midland Park property.
You do.
And he's the guy who really owes the money, because it's that property accruing the fines.
Right, and unfortunately, if he's living there. It's
a homestead, yeah. But anyway, so gentlemen, that'll be my motion tonight. If Commissioner Barr, I see your light on. I mean, if it seems like we've done this in the past for folks, it seems fair. I mean, yeah.
So a little more interested in the previous discussion. The settlement of $5,000 in settlement for what?
In September, I have the packet here. In September of this year, there was a request, I mean, I can give you all the backup here that we pulled. This was a request that went through your existing policy. Your administrator has the authority to give significant relief from these liens if certain conditions are met. You guys have loosened that policy up actually a couple times. So this is the packet.
Any
of-
hard costs in that was reduced?
No hard costs were
No.
waived. The
And-
hard costs were $4,490 of abatement.
And she paid $5,000.
And I asked for $5,000 because we included some of the court costs.
But all of those liens were related to Mrs. Brewer's properties.
No.
Correct.
Well, Ms.
It's-
Brewer, yeah, Ms. Brewer's the one who asked for relief.
Yeah, I mean, that previous action was all related to Mrs. Brewer's properties, not related to Mr. Sapp's properties. This
Well,
is-
some of, well, they,
'cause Mrs. Brewer owns quite a bit of property as well, and she owns
It
it throughout the
appears.
county.
Right, it
So,
appears
I mean,
that way.
I think there have been issues on, while this issue may not be specific to, it doesn't appear as if she controls the property that's now causing the problem. For this one specific issue, I do think that there have been a number of issues on properties that she controls as well. And so I'm presuming everything previously was not related to Mr. Sapp. That was all related to Mrs. Brewer's properties.
No.
The relief that was given by Janice.
No.
I presume, unless one of the underlying liens was also attached to a SAP property, which I just don't know, but I have the list here in the letter of all the liens that were involved in that.
What, Tim, what are you
It's-
saying?
The 7 liens that Ms. Gilly took action on were related to properties previously owned by Mr. Sapp.
Only related to those?
Correct.
But this one was not could not have been included in those because it had, I mean, okay, so.
It's
Because the one
because
that's-
there's an active magistrate order that's accruing daily fines, so that's outside of the administrator's ability to.
Okay, so if this property were in compliance, it could have been included in the previous action then?
Yes.
Right.
Okay, all right, so that's why this one's by itself, all right.
Right.
Does that sound reasonable?
Yeah, that's fine.
But I think
Okay, thanks.
the property in question is in compliance though, right? It's the other property that. it's
Well,
lien-
the one property is still accruing fines.
Right,
The
which is
the
not this
homesteaded
property.
Right,
Right.
right.
Right,
Okay.
the subject property is both in compliance and during this time that she's owned it, she's also improved it.
Yeah.
So-
Removed a mobile home and added a duplex.
I've got pictures if you'd like to see the improvements that they've made. It was substantial.
Okay.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, I'll make that motion tonight, but she'll pay the hard cost, the half, the 550. Yeah, and then Allison, if you'll drop whatever that document is.
Yeah, we always do on the
Okay.
backside of your motions.
That's a reasonable thing for us to do, and I appreciate the support, guys.
Perfect. Okay.
Next, we have the 5:31 PM public hearing for consideration of adopting a resolution establishing the board's intent to use the uniform method of collecting non-ad valorem special assessments. Next, we have the clerk and comptroller's report with the Honorable Pam Childers.
Good morning. I have 5 items on the consent agenda. The first one is recommendation for acceptance of the October 2020 investment report. The second is a recommendation for acceptance of the TDT collection data for September returns received in October. You'll notice in September, it was just over $1 million, which is just over 16% from last year. I did get the October collections that we receive in November. They're up 100,000 over the prior year. We typically collect about 850,000. We collected 941. So that'll be published. Just the cutoff of the agenda didn't allow both reports to go on. We're still kind of getting information and returns for October. For the December returns, they're not due until the 20th.
And I think it's, of course, important to note, I think this is more due to Hurricane Sally than any indication of our economic rebound.
Yeah, contractors are staying at our.
Right, and so it's, of course, good news for those that use the TDT, but it's not necessarily an indication of an accurate picture. And we saw the same thing 2 years ago with Hurricane Michael.
Yes.
So, okay, thank you, ma'am. Go ahead.
Yes, correct. The fourth is a recommendation concerning acceptance of documents for filing with the board minutes. The fifth is recommendation concerning minutes and reports prepared by the clerk to the board's office. The one I skipped was number 3, was a recommendation of transfer of machinery and equipment to the sheriff's office. This is a routine item. We bring it to your attention with backup. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Next, we have the growth management report with Mr. Horace Jones.
Good morning, Chairman, Commissioners, and Board members. Tonight, we have for the GMR, we have the 545 public hearing concerning the issuance of a permit to operate a land clearing debris facility located at 1950 Morgan Cemetery Road. Then for the item 2, we have a GMR action for a final plat for Jennings Place,
Horace,
Phase 1.
quick question on that one. I know they had some issues with some environmental issues on that particular. Has that all been cleared up?
Yes, it has.
And they're in full compliance with?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
The third item, we do have the GMR consent agenda, for January the 7th, 2020. We have numerous items on the consent agenda for January the 7th, yes.
Madam Administrator, do you want to discuss this?
Yeah, I didn't know if we wanted to talk about items C, D, E, and F
And G and
separately.
H.
G and H.
G, okay, I see what you're saying. G is an expansion, and then
Oh.
H, that's fine. They are all related to pits, but I didn't know if we wanted to take any of them separate.
So, Madam
Yes, sir.
Attorney? Yep.
I'm proposing for you all, if you are interested, an option to this, which is on your county attorney's report discussion item. And the option would be to do an emergency order similar or basically exactly what you did back at the beginning of the pandemic, which would be 180-day tolling for these permits. As you know, we've generally tried to do community outreach or town hall meetings and that sort of thing. It's a very difficult, challenging time for your staff to have those kinds of meetings right now. So one of the options, in lieu of scheduling these pit permitting public hearings, would be to do another tolling order, if you wish. It's CAT2-2. That would go retroactive to November the 4th and go for 180 days. It's just an idea and a proposal. That would run all these through the first week of May of 2021 and allow some opportunities for us to get an idea about the landscape of outreach and neighborhood involvement.
Sounds reasonable to me, and that way we get
Yeah.
past the pandemic and the vaccine.
Okay.
And if I may, Commissioners, those items would be C, D, E, F, and H. G would be for the Vine Farm Borough Pit expansion.
Understand.
C, D, E, F, and H.
Okay, so we'll drop C, D, E, F, G, C, D, E, F, and H, and we'll still keep A, B, and G.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Do we need any other language when we drop it, or just drop them?
No, you can just drop those.
Okay, all right, that's fine.
And then the emergency order you can
Okay.
do whenever during the meeting tonight.
Okay.
Thanks, Madam Attorney. That was a good idea.
Next, we have the county administrator's report. There are 22 items on the technical public service consent agenda. The first recommendation is concerning the approval of the 2020 Escambia County Public Transportation Agency Safety Plan, Performance Measures and Targets.
Commissioner May?
I've not read it. Tanya, was it modified with the COVID safety plans or?
Good morning, Commissioners. This particular item is a requirement under FTA that is due by December 31st. It does include safety measures and preventative measures that we're required to provide from the transit agency, as well as including those risk mitigation strategies that are now a requirement under the FTA. So we have rolled some of those preventative measures that we're doing for COVID, as well as some of our regular safety measures into this particular plan.
Okay. So, and I guess the mandatory masks and all that, is it rolled in that plan, or would that be separate?
That would be a little bit separate. We do have a safety plan that we're implementing that was based off of what FDOT recommended as far as having a COVID safety plan. That is one of our additional plans. We have multiple safety plans, but this particular one was directive from FTA, and it is more so on our risk mitigation strategies, more so far as to prevent safety issues.
Well, and I'm glad you're here, Tanya, not to put you on the spot, but how many positives have we had over at ECAT in the last couple of weeks? How many COVID positive tests have we had?
4.
4. And that's just bus drivers. How about your mechanics and dispatchers or anybody?
That's total.
Total. You've only had 4 total?
Yes, sir.
So it hadn't impeded our operations at all?
We still have enough staff to still provide services, so we're still running service, yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
The second recommendation is concerning an Affordable Housing Advisory Committee appointment. Three is concerning the data sharing agreement between Florida Department of Economic Opportunity, Chief Official of Local Workforce Development Area 1, and Career Source Escarosa.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
can we just go back to number 2? Claire, is there another available spot on the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee? I know this is a city recommendation. Do we have one from the county? Do you or Meredith know that? Because I think there was another resignation off of that board, so.
Yes, sir. I think there is, but I can confirm that later today. But I think there is another position.
Has it been advertised yet?
I'm not sure. I can get that information for you
That
today.
would be helpful for me.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sam?
And then 4 is concerning reappointments to the Escambia County Board of Electrical Examiners. 5 is concerning reappointments to the Building Services Inspection Fund Advisory Board. 6 is concerning Pensacola Beach Chamber of Commerce New Year's Eve fireworks display noise waiver.
Can we just hold number 5 tonight for a separate vote?
Okay.
7 is concerning Floribama's New Year's Eve fireworks display noise waiver. 8 is concerning the approval of the cross-border connectivity memorandum of understanding between the Alabama 911 Board and Escambia County. 9 is concerning the request for disposition of property for the Public Safety Department. 10 is concerning the request for disposition of property for the Library Services Department. 11 is concerning the request for disposition of property for the Corrections Department.
Oops. Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Madam Administrator, I don't know if if you have had Bart look at any of these or will, with the board's request, ask Bart, between those two items, there's 70 computers that are being, kind of rolled out. This has been a very difficult year financially for many of our nonprofit partners. And if, governments and large organizations have one view of outdated equipment, our nonprofit partners, I believe, have another view of outdated equipment. And if there's an ability to spend a little bit of time and have any of these computers up to any capacity of just functioning, I know that we each have relationships with partners that, are desperately in need of technology for, for youngsters or for their participants to utilize. If you'd have somebody to take a look at that.
Yes, sir. Bart, we can talk about it in the break. We can talk about it in the break.
12 is concerning the request for disposition of property for the Office of the Clerk and Comptroller. 13 is concerning the request for disposition of property for the Human Resources Department. 14 is concerning the Employee Assistance Program.
Madam Attorney, is this, we're good to
Yes,
go?
sir, it got finalized yesterday, I think.
15 is concerning the Florida Department of Transportation 2020 Transportation Alternatives Program grant applications for Escambia County, Florida. 16 is concerning the 5:31 p.m. public hearing request for the Hamilton Crossing Street Lighting MSBU. 17 is concerning a 5:32 p.m. public hearing request for the Brookhaven Phase 2 Street Lighting MSBU. 18 is concerning a 5:33 p.m. public hearing request for the Smith Station Street Lighting MSBU. 19 is concerning the memorandum of understanding between Escambia County and the Community Redevelopment Agency of the City of Pensacola.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir, Mr.
Just out of curiosity, who donated the planters and the crepe myrtles?
The
Developer.
business, I want to say developers or the business owners at the property across the street. The new condos that are there.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, they didn't really want to look at the back side of the building there.
And thank you, Madam Administrator, and your staff for working with them. I know it's a city issue, but you and your staff stepped in, so certainly appreciate it.
you.
We even had to
Yeah.
move one of them, and
It's probably more your district than mine, Robert, but I think it was.
no, it's actually I think it's Doug's.
Oh,
South of Garment. We ended up having to move one, and it wasn't just as easy as digging it. I mean, they were.
The judges were concerned about
Well, yeah, but
someone
it was
there.
also, it wasn't just easy to just pick it up
No.
and move it. They had to take it apart and everything, so it was.
Correct.
Well,
So I
it's-
appreciate Cassie working on that with Court Edmond.
Yeah, and it's certainly, I mean, for those of us who spend a lot of time downtown,
It looks
it
good.
looks good. For those of us who spend a lot of time walking around downtown. So,
Okay.
till facilities, I mean, Madam Minister, please let Cass and her staff know that we appreciate it. I don't know who did it, Donna or whoever, but we appreciate it.
20 is concerning chairman's appointments to boards and committees for 2021.
Can we hold that tonight, Mr. Chairman, just have a little bit of a discussion?
Yeah, if you want to have a little bit now, I was going to, I heard from Scott Luth. Commissioner Barry, I apologize. I didn't mean to catch you off guard with this appointment. I was going off of last year's appointments, but so I wanted to make sure they recognized you for your years of service, and I heard you were a little surprised when you got the award.
Yeah.
But if you want to stay on that, that was something you put into motion last year, and so I'd be happy to let you stay on there if
Yeah, please.
if you so please. Okay, so we will have that change. That Commissioner Berry will be appointed to the PEDC for a 2-year term. Commissioner Burgash, you stay on there as you're still your 2-year term.
Mr. Chairman, and I am very appreciative of your appointment to the Children's Services Council. You know, after serving on the school board for a number of years, and I've just got a passion for education. But I do understand from our conversation the other day that my counterpart, Commissioner May, is very interested as well. So just want to make this public pronouncement that I will nominate Commissioner May as my appointee individually, because I'd like to serve with Commissioner May on this board, if he would be willing to accept that, and would like to nominate him to serve with me as my appointee. Thank you.
And I know, of course, I put a lot of thought in that. Commissioner May, I was concerned because I know there'd probably be some programs that you're involved in that would want some of that funding, and just trying to avoid any conflict.
Right.
Also, of note, and now Commissioner May, I'll get to you in a second. Jeff, apparently we do not have a seat at the Pensacola Chamber, and so that you were listed as the appointment there, but when I talked to Todd about it, he said that was done away with a number of years ago. So that's been removed from our list. So I just making everybody aware, but,
Their Military Affairs Committee. so-
sure, yeah, I left that there. Commissioner May?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate your concern, obviously. I serve on 13 boards, and many of them I have to abstain because they are organizations that are getting funding. And so it was no slight. It was just, if you've made that decision based on that without any outside influence, that's fine. But, for the record, the Children's Service Council was something that I campaigned for. I went out and on a limb and took a lot of hits. And my commitment to those who supported it in my district at probably 90% was to make sure that the intended purposes would be there. And not to negate Commissioner Begosh, but unfortunately, I took the lead on that. And so I appreciate your humbleness, Commissioner Begosh. I know that council is looking into whether that's legal, and that's certainly not an absolute. A recommendation will be the determination of the governor. But I would, for me, tonight, Jeff, I don't think that we have to make a decision on the Children's Service Council until we get a definitive answer from the governor's office in deciding whether or not we can, two commissioners can serve on that board. And not that I would fight you on it, but I certainly need to investigate that, and I certainly need to take a little time to discuss with those who supported me in explaining to them that we wouldn't be serving, but assure them that we're going to still be engaged. So if you would consider that to just, I don't think we have a gun under our head of when we got to make that decision. I'm not saying I wouldn't support you, Jeff. I'm saying that I would hope that we would drop it for the night, or if we did not drop it for the night, I wouldn't vote for it at this point. And so I would hope that we would drop it for tonight.
And Commissioner May, there was not outside influence in that. It was one, I thought, with Jeff's time as a school board and trying to help with, of course, understand their policies and procedures and what's out there to prevent the duplicative efforts. And help stand up the board, of course. It's
well, the unfortunate thing, we can't talk, and Jeff and I can't talk.
Yeah, I had no idea.
And we don't hang out. I mean, and we can't communicate. And unfortunately, others can communicate in between others, and that's unfortunate. And so there's no secret, who's the face of the Children's Trust Fund as it related to the diets, and there's no secret who's the person with the most experience in education, and that's Jeff. And so I think that, quite frankly, this is not an educational board, but I think Jeff is well suited to do it.
Sure.
And we'll do that. And what I would seek is harmony on this board. But I also represent a constituency that has been sold a bag of tricks by every tax imposed, and the intended recipients have never received it. And so for me, it's not about your appointment or you appointing Jeff. It's about my commitment. I made a commitment, publicly. I made a commitment to what I was going to do, and I'm going to, and if you guys move forward and y'all can move it forward without my vote tonight, so be it. If not, I asked Jeff that we just get through the holidays happily. Let me talk with those and the Pastor Wesleys and the Watsons who anticipated and look at names that we're going to submit. I'm not even saying I need to submit my name, Jeff, but we're going to need a little time. I mean, this was thrown on me Tuesday, and
Sure.
I'm not going to make a decision on it Thursday.
Well, and
y'all can, and I won't be upset.
Right.
We'll still all be, friends as much as we are. But I'm not going to be able to support that tonight. So I'd quite frankly rather decide whether not to drop it tonight, rather than have 100 people cram in here tonight.
Sure.
Dividing us, and that's what, quite
Right.
frankly, is going to happen.
Mr. Chairman, why don't we go ahead and move that one to the first meeting in January?
I want to, I know that the board's getting stood up, and I know they have some things that they need to do, and they need 5 people. So let me make some.
They're not going to stand up between now and January over the holidays,
Okay.
Robert. And that's quite frankly, that's part of the problem is that, it's not a board now. It's nothing until it stands up. And so the decision-making and moving forward, I agree, has to be a board, but it has to be a board decision.
Sure.
And so I don't believe that they're going to stand anything up between now and the holidays.
So, Well, I do want to say, though, that, of course, my understanding of it, and I think the goal of the Children's Trust does mean that there's a very large impact with all those organizations and in your district that you said. I think that is where we have the most to gain from the impact from this organization. You know, I would say you would have my full support in making sure that that is the intended use, and that is where it goes to, again, because I think that's where we have the greatest need, and that's where we can be the most impactful and make the most impact to our community. If again, based on what the intent of this tax is.
Oh, and absolutely, and I know Jeff will do a great job. And we know once we set it up, it's no different than Florida West or visiting any other organization that we have. Somewhat of our authority gets diminished once that board is set up in place. And so I do want to make sure that there's some influence in how it is set up. And we know the staffing and the structure is very important. So. So I received that in the way you did it, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
I think your intentions were pure. I certainly was surprised, quite frankly, you know, and because education is not the root problem. If someone's setting this fund up to fund education, that's not the systemic problem. Education is not the problem. It's a whole social, family, structure, programmatic problem. And so we are tasked with that, the five of us, ultimately, to have a safe and wholesome community. And so I would hope that it's not leaning toward education only. I mean, that would be the wrong intent if we just started funding educational programs.
No, sir, that was not the intent.
Thank you. And Jeff, if you're good with that, I'm fine.
Yeah, as long as that's not going to hold anyone up, I have no problem. I mean, you're the chairman. Sure. It's your decision, but if you'd like to hold off till January to vote on that particular appointment, I'd be honored to serve, and I'm excited to do so. And Commissioner May needs a little extra time to.
Well, I mean, I'm not telling y'all not to bring it forward tonight. I'd just like to know if y'all are going to bring it forward tonight. I mean, I think there are people watching now that would like to know if we're going to bring it forward. So I'd like to know if we're going to either drop it or we're going to bring it forward, because that certainly will be.
I'll have an answer by the end of this.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Sam.
21 is a recommendation concerning an Escambia County Disability Awareness Committee appointment.
Sorry, as I was going ready to check, is my understanding that they do need the appointment. Commissioner May? My understanding is they do need an appointment today.
From who?
Is the request.
I mean, who requested that?
Kim.
Kim?
Krupa.
Under what authority?
I can talk to her some more. You know, like I said, I went to look, and it said that there was the need today. I can.
I mean, I'd like to know what authority and what committee has the ability to recommend and tell me that we're going to make an appointment today, and there's not a committee. And that's fundamentally the problem.
I think that's going to be Mr. Chairman, I think that's going to be a want, and sometimes things just don't work out like folks want.
Sure.
So,
like I said, I'll reach out to them and talk to them today, but their indication was that they would like to have.
And I respect that, Robert, and that's the problem fundamentally that I have, that there is outside influence. There is outside influence of who they want to serve on the board and in which direction and what speed we move in. Tell you what, Leon County has taken 2 to 3 years to implement this. I mean, some people take 24 months, 36 months to make haste on a $10 million deal to come in.
I think the difference between Leon's been working on this for 2 years. I think they are ahead of us right now in terms of already soliciting their appointments.
Well, what they're leaving,
and I understand you say outside.
And that's fine. And Robert, I'm going to be reserved in that, quite frankly, I don't like the way this is panned out, but I'm going to be cordial with this deal.
Sure.
But we're certainly not going to be pushed. And so if y'all going to bring it forward today, bring it forward. I mean, and that's fine with me. And then we can have that lengthy discussion, and we'll probably have more of a discussion that I did not want to have, but I'm going to have it if we bring it forward tonight.
Sure. And I just want to let you know, it was there was no outside influences in pushing me to do this. It was realizing that this had passed and knowing that we would need to put a board member on it And I
And I respect where you're coming from.
I mean, I just want to let you know that. As I said, I went through the whole list and said, okay, what needs to be added, what needs to be taken off? As I said, the chamber, was removed, and because it was something we didn't need.
And that's fine, Robert. And I'll say District 3 supported this tax at about 90%. African Americans supported it about 89%. We had the highest turnout of any district in Escambia County in supporting the Children's Trust Fund because we have children issues. And if I have a recommendation of someone, it's fundamentally flawed when they just tell me, oh, it's just an educational committee. No, it's a Children's Service Council, and it's not a committee. And there needs to be a lot of discussion, even before the formation of that committee, on what the five of us thinks that it looks like, because we represent Escambia County. And so it's something that's probably going to be a tax in perpetuity, even though it kills in 10 years. It's going to decide the directions and how my district particularly looks for a long, long time. And so I'm not going to have any, they've studied it enough, they've had all the things that they needed. I'm not going to sit and not have input on it. Now, if someone wants to make that vote and go, very well, do so, but not with my support.
Yes, I understand. Just make sure, I think, Madam Minister, I think there is a certain letter that needs to be.
Yes, there are two letters that need to be in by the 20th of December. I don't know of any reason why your administrator can't be the signatory on those. They're fact-based. There was a referendum. It passed. It's an independent special district. The Board of County Commissioners has not expressed opposition to the formation of the independent special district. It can, by the statute, have taxing authority.
And it's required within 30 days of the certification of the election.
Right.
It was our understanding previously with the transition team that they would be able to do that. I've now been informed that only the county can do that. So I will have examples for you all this afternoon. We have drafts.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you.
And the board can certainly, ratify that letter if it wants. Usually they come with the administrator's signature.
All right, thank you. Sam?
22 is concerning the proposed process for soliciting and selecting citizen applications for gubernatorial appointment to the Children's Services Council.
Sirs, I put this on your agenda. This was looking at Leon County and other communities. This was a process that they used to select. And I guess the key points are we would ask that we would get the applications out, the application posted to our website. On December 15th, we would take applications until January 30th, and then we would bring it to your February 18th committee meeting for you to narrow down the pool. The requirement is that you send 15 nominations to the governor, but you can certainly choose to send more if that's what you so choose. What has been done in other communities is each commissioner nominates one eligible applicant right out of the box. Then they nominate a second applicant from the remaining pool. Then on the third round, I'm sorry, I did my math wrong. You would nominate 5 more eligible applicants, so you all would vote. That would provide you the minimum of 15 applicants that would go to the governor. And then the governor would, he has 45 days to make the selection.
So it looks like each commissioner would nominate 2 people, with the full board nominating the last 5.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And then, and the reason why it looks that way, round 2 looks like that way, in case any of you because you won't know necessarily who each other's nominating, I don't think, the first round. So in case any of you nominate 2, the same person. So that's why there's a second round to nominate. You can change this if you want to just automatically nominate 2 apiece, and then as a full board you vote on the remaining 5. That would be an option as well. What we will be doing is, as with many other the communities, like we've looked at, Manatee, Leon, Broward, others, we will ask that the applicants not only fill out the county application, but also go on and fill out the gubernatorial application, because that is a requirement for us to submit to the governor's office. So we would put the whole package together.
Next, we have the Budget and Finance Consent Agenda. There are 49 recommendations for your consideration. The first recommendation is concerning the local agency emergency repair agreement between the State of Florida Department of Transportation and Escambia County, Florida for County Road 399, Bob Sykes Bridge area on Pensacola Beach Boulevard over Santa Rosa Sound.
Mr. Chairman, real quick, I presume this is one of our FEMA projects. I kind of take that as I just assume that.
It is. So this is hurricane damage. It looks like this is, we had, this original was to repair the north
Yeah.
end of the bridge, and this is the south end near the toll plaza.
Right, but I mean, I really only asked because of the funding issues. It's the funding methodology is just one of our FEMA projects.
Yes.
Okay.
It's a FHWA road, it'll be through DOT.
Okay, so do we not even have the responsibility for the 12.5% then?
Correct, they'll do
Okay.
100% on this one,
Okay, all right.
emergency.
Well, for future reference where, where it's got to reference, budget things and those things, sometimes, bad news gets left out of the top sheet, and that's, obviously a problem sometimes, but, inserting good news is probably a good idea. So that would be if that line was one of the letters that said, the project is being funded 100% rather than just 87.5, that's, you don't get a lot of opportunities to present good news, so I would probably try to do that.
Yes, sir.
And I'd also comment, though, that if I've received a number of comments, including my, those that I've said, I thought what the contractor did on the north side, there've been a lot of compliments. I think it'll help sustain that north end for any future storms. So again, I think they did a good job on that. Thank you, Joy.
Second is the recommendation concerning a change order on contract PD 1920-050 for Blue Springs drainage improvements at Crescent Lake. Three is concerning the issuance of fiscal year 2020-2021 purchase orders in excess of $25,000 for the engineering department.
All right,
Commissioner Berry?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I need to abstain from this item and I'll read it this evening. It's related to one of the contractors on the pricing agreement, not multiple, but I would, for the ease of the meeting, it's fine with me to abstain from the whole item unless anybody else has an issue with the contractor, which would, if we're only going to have 4 of us here and I abstain, then it would potentially cause a problem. So I'd just abstain from the whole item unless anybody else has an issue, then we might have to do it piecemealed. But.
Okay, I don't have, and yes, there will only be 4 of us here this evening.
Four is concerning change order to F&W Construction Company Incorporated on the contract for local agency emergency repair agreement, Bob Sykes Bridge hurricane salary repairs. Five is concerning the issuance of fiscal year 2020-2021 purchase orders in excess of $25,000 for the engineering department.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Back on the previous item related to the bridge, so is this one that would be the 12.5% county responsibility? I presume this would be one of our...
This was the contract for those repairs that, so this
Or would
is
this
still...
be fully funded?
This is the 112, yes. So this is the project that was the change order in 1.
This
Okay.
is to the contractor
okay.
for that agreement.
Okay.
Six is concerning the community redevelopment block grant agreement with the Escambia County Human Relations Commission. Seven is concerning the acquisition of real property located at 3300 West DeSoto Street. Eight is concerning the acquisition of real property located on Riola Place for the mitigation requirements for the Well Line Road Extension Project. I'm sorry, bear with me one moment.
So just, Sam, you're doing a great job. So Sam's over here trying to navigate and keep the screen going while also making notes in the paper version and clicking ahead. So, you know, again, it's all new for us up here and a little bit of a learning curve, but we're getting it. So go ahead.
And 9, we have been advised to ask you to drop the recommendation concerning the acquisition of portions of real property from Seven States Timberlands LLC for right-of-way acquisition for Pine Barren Church Road and Salters Lake Road paving projects.
Madam Attorney?
If I could. And after reviewing it, it's not necessary that we absolutely drop it, but it would be helpful if we could hold this and make it contingent upon acceptance of an appropriately filled out public disclosure form. If we don't receive one, I will have to bring this item back to the board at a future meeting.
Okay.
And, Mr. Chairman, well, so don't forget, Madam Administrator, this is, what's going to be contingent is upon receiving this list of beneficial owners. And, you know, I think one of the challenges that, that Allison's office runs into when, you know, you have a large company like this, it's more difficult to get agreements out of large companies, certainly. And we deal with it with IP, with it, you know, with certainly others. And I presume that all your communications have to be limited to their counsel's office.
For us, yes.
Yeah, I mean,
But
so
our staff, of course, can talk to others.
well, it would probably be helpful going forward, Janice, if you might would reach out to their leadership, their non-attorney leadership, and they do have a pretty large office out of Mobile, I believe, and see if, so Mulpus is what was Seven States Timber, which was Blue Sky Timber before, which was Champion before. So it's the, you know, 4th or 5th generation of those, and just see if we can get a little bit of movement on on this agreement that we need. And sometimes it's a little easier if it's not having to be attorney to attorney conversation. Thank you.
10 is concerning the issuance of fiscal year purchase orders in excess of $25,000 for the Mass Transit Department.
So Sam, just going back on that, on 9, we are not dropping it, we are just adding the contingency. Okay.
$11 is concerning the approval to issue fiscal year 2020-2021 purchase orders in excess of $25,000. $12 is concerning the purchase of Cisco licenses for the VoIP project Phase 2.
Commissioner?
Mr. Chairman, I apologize. Tanya, is she here? Do you mind?
Yes, Commissioner.
Heather. So I'm still trying to get a vendor number for, we hadn't got the vendor number for, okay. Well, unfortunately, in 2 days, we hadn't been able to get a vendor number for 3H Services, so I don't know if anybody from procurement's in here. They hadn't had time to be able to email Don back with a vendor number, but perhaps we can get on that. But the Zonar Systems, that vendor that's
Yes,
on
sir.
here for $75,000. So we have only spent $20,000 a year within the last 2 years for annual subscriptions for this service. Why is it $75,000 purchase order?
Because we currently have the Zonar system, which assists us in our pre-trip and post-trip inspections on our ECAT buses. We are now going to make sure that that system is implemented on the paratransit vehicles as well. I know in the past there were some challenges with the maintenance, so this would also help us to have that information readily available, so we can kind of make sure that we're staying on top of that, so that it is including that as well.
So it's going to cost us another $55,000 to add the paratransit into the service portfolio?
Yes, sir. It's a per vehicle rate. I don't have it directly in front of me, but I can have that information for you. But
Yeah.
it is to make sure that we're able to then assess some of those issues that are maintenance related on the front end, as we're able to do on our regular buses at ECAT.
What kind of maintenance related to the GPS system? Are they not on the same? Are they not on any of the same type of GPS system that the rest of the county has?
No, sir.
So is some of it hardware then?
Some of it is hardware,
The device is
yes.
part of this cost?
Yes, sir, it is. It's the hardware and the software.
So I don't see the breakdown on here. Would a breakdown of subscription
Yeah.
versus installation,
Yeah.
like,
I can get you that
one-time versus
information.
recurring costs?
Yes, sir.
Might be.
So how big is the fleet of buses that we have? How many buses do we have?
ECAT are for paratransit.
ECAT.
We have a total of 46 vehicles.
So we have 46. How many does paratransit have, give or take?
I believe it's around 35, 36. Some
Okay.
of those include theirs as well.
I'm sorry?
Some of those include ITL Solutions. They have some of their own vehicles that they utilize
But
for the
that's,
service.
is that included in the 36, or it's not included in the 36?
It is included in the 36.
It's included in the 36. Okay, so I mean, we're going to be putting this into the private vehicle, to the privately owned vehicles as well that our partner owns.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Because they're still transporting
Yeah.
our passengers. Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not criticizing. It's a question. Okay. Well, to have it, add that amount to the to what's been an annual service fee, I presume that some healthy portion of it's going to be related to hardware or something. So
Yes,
yeah,
sir.
a breakdown of that would be good. It's not included
Yes,
in the
sir.
backup.
I can get you
Okay.
that information.
All right. Thank you, Tony.
All right, thank you.
Thirteen is concerning the Microsoft Enterprise Services work order. 14 is concerning a fiscal year 2020-2021 purchase order in excess of $25,000 to South Central Planning and Development Commission for mygovernmentonline.org software suite. 15 is concerning the issuance of a blanket purchase order in excess of $25,000 to Ward International for fiscal year 2020-2021. 16 is concerning a change order to purchase order 210629 for Stop Loss Insurance Services Incorporated. 17 is concerning approval of revisions to a section of the Human
Mr.
Resources
Chairman.
Policy and
Commissioner Berry.
Procedures.
Who can speak well about the health insurance stuff?
Is Mark Bartlett here?
No, he wouldn't do. he's not-
Oh, it's the health, sorry.
Good morning.
Hey, good morning. So why are we having to add this much to this contractor?
For the stop loss?
Yeah.
Because when the stop loss
Can you talk
is
into the
approved,
microphone?
oh, I'm sorry. When the stop loss is originally approved, we don't have the year-end data, the numbers yet to officially establish the full amount. So the last item, the last board item y'all approved for it in October was to pay us through the end of this year, 2020. And then this is to pay for all of next year, 2021, until the end of the fiscal year.
So it's not as much a change order as the culmination of what should
It's
have
the
been a
it's the
partial.
renewal, yeah.
A partial.
Correct. Yes, sir.
A
Oh, so
partial.
the term.
We just don't have
change
the
order.
information when we needed to renew the contract, so that's why we're bringing it back
Okay,
this
so
way.
the original purchase order wasn't really an annual purchase order. It was a partial or pro rata portion order. I mean, a pro rata purchase order.
Correct.
Okay. So, but really my question was, so as you wrap the year up, health insurance wise, how was the year?
It wasn't as great as kind of what we talked about. We were over budget, but we made the adjustments in the budget this time around, and we made some adjustments to the plans that we have. One of them was the opt-out, and we did have people participate. We had more participate in the HSA. We did have about 20 more people opt out of our plan, so we're
We
moving
did
in the
have
right
20
direction
more-
on that.
We
Sir?
did have 20 more people opt out?
We had 20 more than we
Yeah,
did last year.
Yeah, okay, that's, I mean, that seems good, or I presume that's good. Okay, and, okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Steve, on this one, it is a little confusing because it looks like it's a change order, but it's just that this current year's hasn't come in until now. Okay, thanks, Sam.
18 is concerning the approval of the memorandum of understanding for the ECAT retirement buyout. Yeah, I did it. Then we talked over something else.
Nope. unless we need to.
Well, that, yeah, well, the only thing I want to say on that is, we had a discussion during our review session and, yesterday afternoon, and I see the need for the policy. A lot of folks might look at it if they don't, understand what can happen. But my understanding, Janice and Allison, is that if we do this, a note can be added that the board would be notified.
Yes, sir.
When this is triggered. And this is so an employee who may be in a position who, let's just say, makes $50,000 a year, works hard, dedicated. There's a position that pays $60,000, and if he goes for it, he actually loses money because right now under the current policy, he can only, so someone off the street could walk in and preempt him. So it just doesn't make sense. It's a tool to help retain good employees. It's a tool to be equitable and fair to our employees. But I can see the potential. So I think it's important to keep us in the loop. So I will support it conditioned upon the notification being made to the board, that the administrator's done it. Because these sorts of things do get abused.
Yes, sir. We
Unfortunately, said. Well, the concern is, you shoehorn, someone else into a position and ladder them up real rapidly. But so before you know it, the guy who was making 50 is now making 100 and may not be qualified. Now, I'm not saying that happens here or it hasn't happened, but I'm not saying that it might. But I'm just saying that's why you give your administrator the authority to do it with the provision that she must make notification to the board. That way, if we have an issue with it, we can keep it in check.
So you're saying you would ask her to?
Yeah, on a monthly basis, just how many folks have done it and where this particular provision has been triggered.
Yeah, and Janice, I don't see this happening often. I mean, or is it more common than we would think?
So the HR director and I discussed this. So in this instance, it doesn't happen because right now we're at the 5%. But you do.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very unfair that a current employee who would get the same job that you came in off the street, but I'd get paid less.
Right, yeah, I'm just getting Jeff's clarification. Yeah, I mean.
It would happen, so this would be applicable every time an internal employee was promoted to a higher position. And how it's written is also if they're reclassified to a higher position. This is actually in line with what other municipalities, not only in Florida, but surrounding municipalities do. They have a 10% increase for reclassifications and promotions. It was originally that way.
Yeah, my only question was, this is not something that happens very frequently, right?
I would say there's not an incentive for it to happen now, but and I think that's why Commissioner Burgash is interested in making sure that we notify you all. Because I do think it will be incentive to retain some employees. We do have employees that do move from department to department, and then sometimes employees may make the conscious decision not to make that move because they're only capped at the 5%.
Right.
So that may be,
happened.
yeah, and I do believe that it is a very, I'm sure each of the directors could share a story with you about how they might have liked to have rewarded or promoted an individual in their department who was maybe exceeding or excelling, but unfortunately, it only allowed for the 5%, which was a discouragement. So,
Hey, Jeff, I remember when we came in,
yep,
when Steve and I came in, this was put to pass administrators in times when people would, on their way out, give people 30 or 40% raises.
Yes, sir.
And I mean, that's why this was
Yes, sir.
implemented.
And this
because
provision will not allow that to happen.
Because it has to
that
come to the
You can't
board.
go past the max of the DBM, and how it had been done prior, they were allowing people to go past what the end of the range allowed anyways. This will not allow for that. And we're also stressing that we're not giving directors and departments more monies to do this.
Right.
They need to operate within the budget that they have. So if you want to make that decision that you want to promote someone knowing that you have to give them that 10% increase, you might not be able to fill this position. You're just going to have to balance that.
No, it was just a reporting, Jeff, and I'm good with Jeff, if that's what you want, for it to come back.
Don't you think it's a good idea for us to be notified?
Yeah, that's fine with me.
I mean, that way
I don't have a
everything's out in the open. And I do think
Yes, sir.
employees, unfortunately, or unfortunately, whichever way you want to look at it, they're going to be strategic in the way they move up the ladder. And a lot of times that means we're missing out on good leadership and a good employee in a position where we could really need them. And, you got to understand, why would they do that when they won't be able to get the full pay that someone off the street
The best employee may not be in the position that's best for them or best for us.
And I'm glad you brought it up, Jeff, and that's an indication, because we're doing COVID, and I mean, we had tight budgets, and we're not being able to give raises. There's no one getting a raise, and that's why I was making that point, that it's not very often.
It's
because I
not.
don't want people who work in Parks and Recs and Public Works to think that we're getting administratively someone big raises right now. We can't give anybody a raise right now.
And
I mean, we're cutting back. We're not
was
giving
this also
raises
the
right
one
now.
where it was based on the HR director's approval, but I think we would rather have the county administrator's approval.
It follows our other
And notification to
policy.
the
Okay.
It requires her approval upon a certain.
Okay, because I think it had said HR director, but I think one that changes is also, it's got to go to the county administrator as opposed to the HR director.
I like that idea.
So Commissioner Berry?
Thank you. Yeah, very supportive of this. You know, I want people in leadership positions to be able to reward and compensate their people that are high performers. I hope that we've done everything that we can do to also allow those people to cull their departments of people that are low performers. We're not going to have, as an organization, we're not going to have high performers if we don't address low performers in the same organization. Because if people don't see a motivation to excel, they're not going to excel. And if they don't see consequences for lack of production, if they don't see consequences for lack of taking care of, of duties, then you're not going to have high performers in organizations. And if we don't give directors and supervisors a real ability to divest their departments of problem children, then we're not going to be able to move forward as an organization.
Steve, and I concur, but and I like Jeff's idea of coming back to the board because it would be idealistic to believe that every time we just had overachievers and overperformers and we never had any disciplinary action for underperformers. So, I mean, I can be supportive. I like it, but at the same time, as you said, we should bring about, directors should be held responsible for bringing about stewardship to those people who think you just get a government job and the only thing you have to do is show up.
Right.
I mean,
that's the only way you get fired is by not showing up, and that can't. I mean,
Yeah.
we've got to.
And then you fight that.
Right.
Yeah.
Commissioner, I also want to clarify, I don't think he said that.
You fight, you show up and you get, yeah.
It's not going to be brought back to the board to be voted on. It just notify the board. Okay, I just want making sure.
Yeah.
If it gets to where we. And that way, look, you think about decisions before you make them, if you know the board's going to be notified. We had the same thing in the school district. We
don't need to
put
vote
that
on
in
it.
there,
We
and then
just-
suddenly it stopped happening. It's amazing. So, and then if it starts stacking up to a point where you know it's something, you pull it back, right? You have the authority to do it.
And Mr. Chairman, I agree. I mean, I don't ever want, we have enough responsibility. We don't need to get in that's why we have an administrator for the day-to-day operations. But if people are overachievers, I mean, we should be knowing, and people are underachievers, we should know it, because the moment they're terminated, they're going to show up here at public forum. So, I mean, we do ultimately have the responsibility. So with that comes authority. So I agree with my colleague to my right. We're going to reward those who are doing great things, but in order to bring about those efficiency, we're going to have to hold those who are not holding their end up, we're going to have to hold them responsible.
So I do want to speak to what you and Commissioner Berry have just mentioned, because I do think it has been a cultural issue. One of the things that the HR director has been doing at the last directors meeting is we have tried to make training of the directors more of a priority in terms of, we've created a personnel incident report and also a personnel recognition report. Because what we find is, as what Commissioner Berry recognized or mentioned, is that there may be situations that you need to address, but there hasn't really been a standard format or a standard way for the county and all the departments to do that, so that we could start making those proper documentations. So we have been doing that training with HR and the directors, and then this next meeting next week, we'll be talking about the personal improvement plans for any employees as well. So making sure that the directors all have a standard way to manage those difficult employee situations, and make sure that they are recorded and in their personnel files and stuff like that.
Absolutely, because whether we as a board recognize it all the time or not, and myself included, I mean, we compete with, the private sector for people that are talented, and that certainly a factor in that is compensation. The benefits and stuff are incorporated in it. So I'm not saying it has to be dollar for dollar, but we do compete with the private sector for talented folks. We have, in my opinion, we have enough top line revenue to be able to compete for talented people, as long as we free up the personnel dollars by having the resources available by not having low performers continue to be on payroll. That's, It's, you know, I think some of your leadership is more experienced dealing with that than others, and, you know, we've got to help those that don't have that experience.
And I would just make one more note too, because you're 100% right. Quint Studer came and spoke to our directors a couple of weeks ago, and that was, quite frankly, a major focus of his conversation, was making sure that we find a way to divest ourselves with those that are dragging the organization.
I mean, you look at the GE model, right? 5%, bottom 5% going every year. So.
And even on you know, a more local level, just, you know, you take the, you know, 8 or 10 of the larger businesses around here and talk to some of their leadership, and it's what they do. I mean, you know, they're accountable to boards, they're accountable to, whether they're accountable to shareholders or not, depending on whether it's a publicly traded company. I mean, they're accountable to equity holders or board members, and you know, and I would love it if there was a perception that, you know, that we could operate in a, not the same way, but some analogous way. I mean, even if it's not, you know, even if it's not the same, close.
Yeah.
I do believe the implementation of the HRIS system will also help with that accountability piece, because that creates the transparency. Everything will be localized in that one system, so you'll be able to track what departments are doing, and so we'll be able to easily access how many people have been promoted, what they got paid, all of that.
Hypothetically.
Yes, sir.
Hypothetically, we'll be able to do that. If it's not done, then it's not, then it's just technology that we have available that's not being utilized. I mean, it's not completely dissimilar to GPS technology that we've had in place for 5 or 6 years throughout, you know, supposedly throughout the entire county fleet department. And, you know, we have multiple people in leadership positions that are supposed to be overseeing employees' activities on somewhat of a regular basis as far as where they're going, what they're doing, and those things. And that hasn't been happening. So we can have, I mean, you can have resources there. If they're not utilizing the resources that are there, these reports aren't valuable if they're not viewed. If you have people that don't have if they don't have a login to be able to look at GPS, it's difficult to make an argument that there's much oversight. So, you know.
Also on 18, I just, the ECAT retirement buyout, I know this is something that was first started in 2017 with a letter Jack sent, so I'm glad that we were able to get this hopefully closed and this offer to those employees.
All right, so, and Madam Administrator, back to what Robert said. So this, upon the execution of this will close everything out with the bringing them in-house? We still have the labor agreement, I understand that,
Yeah.
but we have that with people that have been here, with organizations that have been county employees for years, so that's okay. But any of the other things, this closes the book on ECAT, other than the labor agreement that is going to be, you know, that's just a standard part for our bargained employees.
So I would say, as far as I've been made aware of in the past 18 months, this would be the only thing that I'm aware of that's kind of out there, because they've
Okay.
already been fully integrated into us. Unless, Tanya, I'm not aware of anything else. I mean, this would be the only thing that was kind of hanging out there. So we're glad that we were able to come to resolution, and once you all vote on it, that starts the clock on the, and we already have the body of the people that are, you know, recognized.
Okay,
Yeah,
super. Thank you.
so the 5 that have, or the 4 that are still, well, 3, they have a year to actually retire. And that was to prevent everybody from leaving at once and creating a vacuum for ECAT. So these 3 have a year to actually retire from the system.
So they have a year, and then they could reapply and just come back
They
in at the
could,
bottom.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So,
Well, actually, so they actually could, I just want to correct that. If they retire, and take the buyout, there is a stipulation, not in the MOU, but it's in the status quo, that they can come back, but they would lose all seniority and they would start like a brand-new employee.
absolutely.
Right.
Yeah,
Yep,
that's what I
that's
was
what we
saying.
said.
Okay,
Yeah.
just want to make sure.
Yeah, I think that's what I said, right?
Yeah, that's what we said.
Yeah.
Okay?
And I'm glad, Robert, too, for James McIntyre, who did die of COVID, and his wife Carol. I'm glad that we got this resolved for them.
Yes, that's, I mean, and that's, again, something we've been working on for going over 3 years now, and so glad we were able to reach an agreement.
And thank you, Commissioner Berry. We probably wouldn't be this far with ECAT and the resolutions without your leadership, so certainly appreciate it.
Absolutely. It's long-term, it's it's a much better situation for the county.
And Jana, and I know that we've had closed-door sessions to talk about this. And I mean, obviously Willie Carter is a dear friend, and I call it the grandfather of the bus system. But we feel, from our position, we have adequately and sufficiently advised Jim Stanton, Alan Wise, Sophia, Archibald, Danny Smith, and Willie Carter of their options, and they clearly understand the decision that's going to be made once we make the vote tonight.
Yes, sir. We had individual one-on-one meetings with each individual that was eligible that included a representative from HR, payroll, management, as well as Mr. Lowry as their union representative to lay out everything on the table, answer any questions. They've also received letters, and if this is approved and ratified, they will receive another letter explaining exactly what they need to do, what they need to look for, and what
Great.
have you.
So you did talk to them individually?
Correct.
All
Yes,
right.
sir.
Thank you. I certainly
Madam Administrator.
appreciate that.
Yeah, and they have, these individuals have 1 year if they then choose to retire as well.
Okay, well, thank you, ma'am. So, and they understand that, so they could come back in a year and decide to retire.
But what we have done with this MOU, we have memorialized the fact that this is the final resolution. So yes, the 1 year clock starts when you vote on this memorandum.
Now, I think me and Commissioner Berry are ready to get this over with. I think it's been a long time.
Commissioner, they would have to
coming.
retire still within this year. They don't get a year from the time they decide to do it.
But
as-
December 31st of 2020.
No, sir, I think it's,
Whenever it's signed, so whenever it's considered fully executed, that starts the time clock. So they have a year from that date
to retire.
to retire. Yes, sir.
Okay. So you're saying from the time we ratified to the time you
So
signed it?
I'm saying that the three that have already come forth and said they're going to accept it have a year from the
Oh,
date
yeah,
of
yeah,
ratification to retire.
Yeah, got that. Yeah. They got to go home.
Well, within that year. If anyone else decides
Yes,
that they want to do
correct.
it, they don't get a year from the date they decide. It's still a date for
Yeah.
the execution. Okay.
Yeah, no,
Absolutely.
it is true. The MOU gives them all a year.
Correct.
Right.
The ones on the list, the limited list that were transitioned over.
Correct.
Right.
Not just the three, but
Correct, even Willie Carter.
the other
There's
five.
five
There's
that have
a
accepted
PowerPoint.
it and 5 that have actively declined it. The 5 who have actively declined it, it's still applicable to them. They still have that year, and that cost is represented in the backup in terms of what it would cost if those 5 also took it. And it's really not a huge percentage-wise increase.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, yeah, we're
Perfect.
good. Well,
All
I
right.
appreciate it, Madam Administrator, for Jennifer working through that. I know it's been difficult.
y'all.
And I
Thank
do
y'all very
believe
much.
that, those who provide public transportation provide a essential service, so fairness is always important. So I think we've done the best we could do. So,
Yes, sir.
thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
19 is concerning supplemental budget amendment number 12, FWC number 20133 and 20158, derelict vessel grants. 20 is concerning supplemental budget amendment number 15, supervisor of election, CARES grant.
Madam Administrator, so I realize this is, it's going to be housed in our, in general fund, but, David's office, he's going to control this money, correct? I see some pretty general allocations, but the entire amount is going to be controlled by his office.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And I believe, was this in lieu, I won't say in lieu of, but he didn't necessarily get some from us as, yeah, so this was, yeah.
We did accumulate some expenses for extra cleaning during the elections, but that wasn't to him. So he did not ask us, I don't remember him asking us for anything.
Okay.
21 is concerning supplemental budget amendment number 16, law enforcement trust fund. 22 is concerning supplemental budget amendment number 18, Sheriff's Department. 23 is concerning supplemental budget amendment number 19 for the Sheriff's Department. 24 is concerning supplemental budget amendment number 20 for the Sheriff's Department. Number 25 is concerning supplemental budget amendment number 21 for Volunteer Florida Federal Fiscal Year 2020-2021 EMPG Community Emergency Response Team Program Contract. '26 is concerning supplemental budget amendment number 22 for the Bureau of Justice Assistance Grant Award for Correctional Officer Bulletproof Vest Funding. '27 is concerning supplemental budget amendment number 23 for Supervisor of Elections additional funds from SOE Security Grant. '28 is concerning TDT financial update.
Mr. Chairman, in the backup for this, it's got a little PowerPoint, and with you being on there, I think, well, it appears as if this PowerPoint was probably presented to TDC or at least something, whether y'all didn't, if you didn't talk about it, was at least in the backup or something. It appears to still show a 3.3% administrative fee.
Yes, sir.
I think that we began a process 4 or 5 years ago to back that down to 3 flat. Is that?
It is. We ended up collecting less last year, so the clerk has already sent some back, and so there just needs to be the journal entry needs to be made. So in past years, when the budget has collected more than was expected, she didn't get any additional of that. I'm not saying that, I'm saying it was lower, but they've reconciled it already.
Okay.
And she is at that 3%.
Okay, so do we not do it as a percent? Do we do it as a dollar amount then and try to reconcile
it is
the
a percent. It just doesn't go back and change as it ebbs and flows throughout the year. So it's budgeted in the beginning of the year, and that's what goes in our general fund.
Regardless of a little bit of stuff in the backup, the 3% is what we're doing going forward, because that's where we worked. It was 4 or 5 years ago, we worked down grade or some kind of platform.
Per state statute, yep.
Yeah, okay, all right, I got you. Thank you.
I mean, the question would be is if we collect more than we anticipate, do we go back in and make sure we've collected the full 3%, or are we good with what we started off with?
Well,
but yes, this was a presentation to the TDC board.
Yeah, I mean, you've got, others to pull. I mean, I think that, back in coming down from 5 down to 3% was what we were supposed to do, and, it seems to be clearly the right thing. But I would be of the opinion we should collect the 3% on everything, though. I mean, regardless of what we collect, I mean, if we're collecting it and dealing with it, we should probably get the 3% on everything.
Chairman, I'd like to make a comment if you would. Yes, you are correct, Commissioner Berry. The statute's very clear that you get 3% on collections. The comment that we've never gone back to reconcile and true up is correct, because there are some years it would have been an $80,000 swing to Fund 108. The OMB at the time made the decision of, we're in a good place, the money is in the 108 fund. That's the plan, we're going forward.
Okay.
This year, when things started tanking back in May, we said absolutely, we will probably look at this reconciliation, but OMB will probably not make the decision to go and do it cumulative. Funny that you bring this up. At the time, I was trying to get back to my emails and write all of you and the TDC Commission based on Chair Baer, David Baer, in trying to answer some of his questions. Also, I would like to tell you that that 5%, the statute does allow for indirect cost. So it's, the 3% is an automatic, and then you can do additional costs. This county has never done that, and also what this county is doing is a current RFP to do a new cost allocation plan, which will show you, is it 5%, is it 6%, is it 4%, but that's where you get that additional cost that you can do. But this county only does 3%. I hope that helps. I am putting it in writing for all of you.
Oh, okay, super. Thank you, Roman.
And also, the 3% doesn't necessarily go all to the clerk. I mean, we do have other expense, and to think that she's getting 3% just for what her organization does. We still have people that manage the meeting. Our staff that handle things for that board. So.
Which is why you get the opportunity for additional indirect, because you're right, it's me and you. Thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, not related to this item, but I think it's my opinion, it's one of the things where it's difficult to have I think we deal with it multiple times where, items aren't always just standalone items. I mean, there's history to them. There's partnerships over the years that have gone on, those kind of things. So as we talked about Madam Clerk's stewardship and these things, I know that it's not been recognized. I will mention it tonight and was planning on it, but I'll mention it this morning briefly since Madam Clerk mentioned something. They returned $750,000 this year.
They did.
Substantial. Out of, not one of the, certainly not the largest partner that we have, and not as a percentage, as a very large percentage of the overall budget that goes there. $750,000 in equity coming back is a tremendous partnership, and I'll mention it tonight as well, but since you spoke this morning, thank you.
Yes, very, very well deserving, and of course, we appreciate that, Madam Clerk, but I think it goes to show how you run your department, so thank you. Commissioner May, you have anything?
No.
Okay.
I mean, you're on that board, right? I mean,
Yes, sir.
what's the concern? I mean, at 3%, well,
The concern is the state statute allows 3%, and our records show 3.3%, and so we just hadn't closed out the year yet and gone back, and because they were allocated what we had projected to be received. We received considerably less than that, and so at the time theirs wasn't adjusted, and so it appears that they received more, but as she said, she's already returned it.
The calculation is a little over 22,000. Last year, the swing would have gone the other way. You would have gotten 80,000. So that cumulative makes a big
Pam,
difference.
they thought that we went over the 3%. Was that the concern of their board, that we went 3.3?
Sure, it is $22,000 over. We knew in May that it would probably be substantial because revenues were nosediving, exactly what I'm writing, Mr. Bear, right now. But as it turned out, different things happened that we didn't decline as far according to the budget. So we weren't so far down below, and the overage of the 3%, if you can hang with all these numbers, was $22,000. It was de minimis, really. And we will post it at the close of our audit because I believe that we're going to stick to what we said we would do in May, and we're going to post it and not do a look back of cumulative. I believe Administrator Gilley is going to take that stand unless this board decides otherwise.
And Pam, probably you and Commissioner Perry are the accounting people on the board for me. But statutorily, I mean, when we went over the 3%, does that cause any violation, or that's just accounting?
No, because you haven't even closed out the year. We already know that we're going to do a true-up. It will follow a fiscal audit.
At the end, we'll be at 3%. We won't be over.
There's no violation. And quite frankly, you can do a look back, and it would swing way the other way. This administration has chosen not to because of prior decisions not to do it. So everything has a history. So we're here today, and the plan has always been to post. You won't see that entry go back to 108 until probably about February.
And then it will still be at the 3% that statutorily we can get. It won't be 3.3.
Right.
But the other, speaking to what Chairman Bender said, so the contrary, the opposite to that is that this year we only booked about $10 million in TDT. Let's say we collect 11 or 12. You as a board are probably not going to go back and give more of that 3%. You know what I'm saying? You're not going to go back and give the 3% to the 12 million because you budgeted 3% of 10 million. So the number next year may come out to be 2.7. Now that's if I'm hoping as an optimist that we're going to have a lot more TDT next year, more than the 10 million that we budgeted for. So I think that's what I think.
The 3% is
she's trying to
projected on
demonstrate.
anticipated income based on prior years.
Right.
Yes.
We don't go back and reallocate. It's not based on collections. I'd say it would probably be the best way. But I'm saying you don't collect the 3% as it comes in.
Right.
You're allocated the 3%.
We get
based
it
off
once
the
a year.
budget. Right. She's allocated 3%
And it's a
based
little
on
bit
the
more
budget.
cumbersome than that, if you want me to be my accountant self. You budget my entire budget as the comptroller. That's budgeted. Then quarterly, we take that 3% calculation and transfer it to the general fund because you have already funded me out of the general fund. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And again, we have a lot of other indirect costs, as she was saying, that may not just be in the clerk's office. It would be.
It's your
others.
office.
And then we reconcile it every quarter, Madam Clerk, or we reconcile it
At the end of the fiscal year.
At the end of the fiscal year.
But choose not to do it cumulative. We choose to take 1 year standalone. This year will be 22,000. And Commissioner Bender, if you're finished with that part of the topic, I would like to bring up an audit topic.
Yes,
If
ma'am.
we could stay on TDT, can I continue?
And Pam, can you just explain it, just for a layman like me? The 22,000 is what we went over, just $22,000 in real numbers is what you're saying?
When we finish the audit, our quick calculation is 22. Revenues still come in after the fact that go back to the prior year, so it's hard to do it at 9/30. So that's why we have a true-up at the end of the fiscal year.
So it wouldn't have happened quarterly, just at the end of the year, it was so we would give them $22,000?
Yes, sir, you'll put it back in Fund 108.
So what she's saying, the .3 that they say we went over is equivalent to $22,000 that back in May, she knew she was going to have to give back some money because we were not meeting our expected collections.
Had we jumped right then, we may have made a posting of 80,000 because it was tanking at that
Right.
time, but you made up so much of that revenue, which is why you wait till the end of the fiscal year, which is why you wait till the audit is done. Then you do a true-up. It's just the right way to do it.
I'm good. Rob, I mean, you're on that committee. I mean, I sat in for a little bit, but.
Right.
What, was that just the concern, the $22,000?
I think it was more the 3.3 was the concern, not necessarily the dollar amount, but just that it had exceeded, because they didn't know what
It's
that.
not a
0.3
violation.
Right.
It all,
Yeah.
it gets.
But again, I think it's just checks and balances and making sure that, that we are following what we say we will.
Yes,
and
sir.
what we are.
And I do respond to the TDT, and I've tried to make the meetings as of late to educate them. They have new members. We're new executive director. A long email that I'm going to send you. I would like to have this conversation now. I'll keep it as short as I can. The TDC voted to have an audit. I haven't quite figured out the scope of their audit, what we would call it, whether it be forensic, operational, not real sure. But the TDC does not have the authority to call an audit. They have the authority to recommend to you a scope for an audit. So that is something that needs to push up to you for a vote, whether or not you would want to do an audit. And then when you want to have that conversation, I'll tell you what we do in a financial audit, what we do at Visit Pensacola, what we do with the county, so that we can decide what the scope is that the TDC would like for an audit, if you so feel inclined to spend money on an audit. Whether or not you feel it's a risk area, sometimes it's an education piece and not an audit, but I just wanted to tell you, you'll be getting an email from me
Sure.
regarding that.
And so I think.
Would we pay for the audit, or would they pay
Well,
for it?
that's,
You would pay
that's
for
the
the
thing.
audit.
We would have to pay for it. And Madam Clerk, I think we've talked, it could be as much as $50,000.
It gets
or
to
more.
be a pretty expensive audit. This is the problem with an audit like this, is somebody else is going to decide what is tourism. The fact of the matter is, they're not going to do that. No auditor will decide what is tourism. They will look at every expenses, and we will take down a forest with Visit Pensacola backup. They're very, very good with their backup. It is the board's determination of what is tourism. If you all decide to do a reef project because you believe that is tourism, quite frankly, before you even vote, I go run and do the research. I do it myself, my finance director. We Google and find auditor general opinions, which we have for a reef, to make sure you're within the rails of tourism. If you look like you're going outside the rails, I try to have a conversation with your county attorney, with your chairman, with your administrator. That's how I've done it in the past. You haven't really brought many more projects. There are very few county projects going forward. You guys know of the bridge project, the beach mowing, and also the first through third cent is within the plan for the tourist development council's plan. The fourth cent and fifth cent will be according to statute and according to what the BCC decides is tourism. So that's when I tell you the scope of the audit can be a little cumbersome, but maybe sitting down with TDC Chair Bear and finding out what he would like to explore, maybe an education and a meeting with me, a meeting with Ms. Gilly or the county attorney, or with you. I'm not real sure, but I'm going to put it in writing for you, but that's the conversation.
Pam, could he, I mean, and when you meet with Chairman Bear, I mean, if they're asking for an audit, I mean, statutorily or legally, can they pay for it? I mean, is it,
No.
It's mandated that we would have to
No.
pay for it out of our.
They have no authority. They have two responsibilities in the statute. One is to review all of the expenditures under the plan, the first through 3 cents. And the second is to make recommendations to you. So about the plan, maybe about an audit, I would step in as a comptroller, and I already wrote this in black and white, so I don't mind saying it out loud. I would step in as a comptroller and audit with my power and authority. However, I don't see this as a risk area, given how much time I spend with Visit Pensacola expenditures, how much time I spend on county expenditures to make sure we're between the rails. I don't want to make the paper, you don't want to make the paper. I don't want to lose any of our tax for this county, so we are very diligent on our 108 revenues.
I think we all received that email that the clerk staff put together post the TDC discussion. And one, I commend her staff for doing that. I think, I mean, they spent hours pulling it together.
It was a long day.
But for me, I looked at a couple things. One, what money had been spent on county projects? And I had made the statement that I felt that every county project that we had put TDT money towards had gone in front of the TDC board in the last 2 years.
Yes, sir.
And I believe that
Yes,
was
sir.
confirmed. So that was one thing that was some concern of making sure that we weren't spending money on projects they weren't aware of. The other thing is I think there's probably been some question about marine resources, getting some allocation from there. Some of that has to do with beach renourishment. I mean, that's a huge discussion right now, but but that, of course, I think relates to tourism. And so there's some question. I'll say I made the motion during the meeting that we have county staff work with the clerk's office to come up with a plan forward, and the clerk went ahead and put the information together, which was sent out to all of us. I think now in having those discussions with her and what's been put out, she'll talk to Chair Bear, but to know that it would be $50,000 potentially coming out of our pockets, or out of the funds that we control, for an audit, as she said she feels comfortable based on the spends of what.
But basically, Pam, it's been audited, correct? I mean, because you watch it, I mean, you're the comptroller.
It goes through several levels of review. That's why I tell you, this is not a risk area for me, and I think it's a training education area for a new board, a new chair, a new executive director, that I would like to spend time with Chair Bear to discuss this. And if they have the statutes do say if they feel something is fraudulent or unauthorized, they are to report it to you immediately and to the State Department of Revenue. So if they really felt something was illegal, that should already be going. I don't.
Who would they
see
report that to you if they thought that something was illegal?
They could come to me, but they can go straight to DOR. They can go to you as a commissioner. They tell one of you it's fraud, you need to.
And if
be
you
telling the
oppose
rest.
them having the audit because you feel comfortable, I mean, do they have another option in which they can request the audit, or does it die with you, or does it die with us in the request?
It dies with you.
It would come to us.
I don't feel the need to audit as a comptroller because I know this fund and that organization and your spends way, way deep. I'm very familiar
And
with
the
it.
audit is auditing Visit?
No, sir, it would be all the TDC monies.
It would be the county's portion,
Okay.
it would be Visit Pensacola, and the county's portion, Visit Pensacola, goes to your outside agencies. Again, if this county deems it to be tourism, it's tourism. I'll keep you within the rails, so will Administrator Gilly, and so will your county attorney. And when it comes to within the plan, which is your 1 through 3 cent, that's under your plan, the TDC council should be reviewing all of the documentation.
Because they wrote the plan, correct?
That, the plan is a joint commission, and they can make recommendations to change that plan. They may decide, hey, let me bring it towards you. We want the 4 cent in the plan. Actually, I don't think the 4 cent can be in the plan. So you can only do 1 through 3 plan. Here is our plan spend.
Do you know when the last time the plan was updated, Pam?
At the inception. What was
No.
that, 5 years ago?
Yeah, 5
At the inception, code 90.57, I believe it is in
Has it
your
been
code.
updated since?
No,
There
you
was an
haven't,
update.
I mean, you may have had small updates, but the plan as a whole has
Who put the
not
plan
been
together,
updated.
Pam? And I'm sorry to add so many questions.
No,
but
this is a great dialogue, because I
this has
spend a
never
lot
been
of
in my
time writing
wheelhouse. I
you.
mean,
Sure.
it's been
And I
Grover
don't
and
even know
Roberts.
if you read it.
The plan was put together by the TDC and Visit.
Joint.
Between
No,
TDC,
TDC
us.
and the commission.
And probably, they brought recommendations to us, and we probably passed it. We probably
Yeah.
didn't have a working.
I mean, I don't know
There
exactly how it
hasn't
went, but it was
no.
probably a
There
give and
hasn't been
take of
much.
some sort.
But the main input came from TDC, Pam, you would say, for that plan?
Yes, sir.
I mean, I don't know, Pam, is it a good plan? I mean, do we need to
It is a
review the
good
plan?
plan, and you further operate within that plan when you pass your budget. So I remember there was a conversation about 60% or 40% or 65% of revenues. You control how much you're going to put in the visits budget, because according to the plan, that is the county has all of the control in this. The TDC does not. They recommend, they review all expenditures within the plan. I do too, but they do. But you have the control to do the projects within tourism that you believe need to be done. But you want the TDC to give you guidance, recommendations, and be a partner.
And Visit would report to the TDC, and the TDC report to us, is
Yes.
basically how the plan is?
Yes, sir.
So technically, Visit doesn't have to report to us, they report to the TDC, and the TDC reports to us.
Correct. Indirectly, they kind of report to me with their expenditures. I spend a lot of time with Visit. I mean, their stack, if I were to print it, is probably this big for every monthly reimbursement. And we make sure there's no alcohol in there. I mean, we go through so much detail, and they are quick to respond. I have not had a problem with Visit's response. We have a new executive director. We've reached out and had meetings. I've talked to him at meetings. We collaborated during the budget, so we have a good working relationship.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
That backup, I have seen, some of that backup for the visit reimbursements, and it is lengthy. Is that something that the TDC board has seen? Do they ever see that?
I've asked that question. I looked at their package when I'm in the meetings, and I see very summary statements, so
Yeah.
I know at a meeting, and so, like a statement of net assets. I see a statement of expenditures, monthly expenditures or quarterly. I see summary. I can't tell you whether or not they see the detail, but I have informed them in an email that they can.
Yeah.
I can provide a flash drive, they can go get it from Visit Pensacola, and that they should review that detail so that they know how they are defining tourism and what they want Visit Pensacola to do, because that's good feedback for Visit Pensacola to know what the TDC is looking for in their spending.
I was thinking that would be something that was valuable for the board to be able, for them to be able to see if they hadn't seen, because it is, different boards. I mean, you see a line item that says something, and they're pretty large expenditures, and this would, maybe they don't look at the backup for all of them, but, if you see a couple of the backup for the checks, then you would see, and I did see alcohol get deleted from some of the reimbursements. I mean, these things happen.
It happens, and it just, and there's a lot of automation that gets involved. But for instance, let's say there's a direct spend on digital advertisement in Chicago and Alaska. And if you were just to look at the line item on the summary sheet, it may say digital advertisement, $9,000, okay? But if you look at the detail and you see Chicago and Alaska, okay, I agree with Chicago, but why Alaska? And then the TDC can give reports and feedback back to Visit Pensacola of why Alaska, and there might be a great, this is just a makeup. I think Chicago was real last year, but I'm just telling you why the
Chicago was
details
real last
matter.
year, yes. Board, I just wanted to say I made that motion because I do want transparency in how those funds are spent. I do want to make sure that we are spending on what we say we are, and that, again, there was some question about other projects and things like that, but I did, so that staff work.
Holding you, Rob. I mean,
No,
what are you looking for?
But again, I think what Pam's office provided was detailed. It showed that we haven't gone and spent TDT funds without at least asking the TDC to approve those first. It really breaks down how each penny has been spent. And I think if you haven't had a chance to look at what she sent about a week and a half ago, just look through it, because it's detailed in what was budgeted, what was spent, I think it just, I think I sent that, it just paints an accurate picture and a clear picture of how the funds are spent. So that was what was important to me. And as I know Chair Bear may have a different maybe
He
looking
may
for
have a
something
different
else?
scope that I'd like to work with him.
Yeah.
He has very good questions, and I'm glad he's doing the dig as a chair, but we'll continue to work together and see where he's at. I just don't think an audit is warranted, but maybe we'll find something that they're looking for that would be helpful.
And I can say that a $50,000 audit spend was not mentioned during the meeting, so.
I don't think that's his intention.
Right.
I understand what his intention is. I think we can figure it out with a little bit more communication.
Commissioner Berry? Okay. Sam?
I was going to do the next one.
Okay, go ahead.
29 is concerning the approval of the program participation agreement between Escambia County and Pathways for Change Incorporated.
Can we please hold that?
Yeah, Madam Administrator?
Yes, I just wanted to make sure that we let you know that you all had approved up to $25,000 at the October board meeting, and this participation agreement now takes that into consideration. So for the first 2 months, we took care of the funding as you all had recommended in October. And then what is left, there are a couple of months to handle the transition of the individuals in the program. So that is the only thing that would be expended for the next 3 months. So it's at $4,000 per month, and so it ends on February 28th. So there would be no longer an agreement past that date.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
So in looking at the agreement, so we approved 25,000. It looks like there's 27.8 and then 12,000. That's 39.8. Is this 39.8 the cumulative, or, okay, so the 39.8 that's in this agreement includes the 25 that we already put, so it's actually, so it's another 14.8 that we're allocating to Pathways.
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right.
And it's for the transition period to get the, each of the folks that are in the program. I did speak to the judges about this, and so it is a situation where those folks have been sentenced to that program, so
Yeah.
they do have to find a place for them to go.
Yeah, but I mean, we weren't supposed to be funding the entire program anyways. I mean, so just because they're sentenced to, I mean, they're the other revenue sources, right? I mean.
They do.
Okay, I mean, you know, we approved
Yeah,
25, we approved 25,000. This item, this request is for 39.8. You know, I guess that's reasonable, but.
Yeah, the only person that we are funding after the first 2 months is the reentry director.
All right, are we funding 100% of the salary for that?
I don't remember, is the 4,000 the 100% for 3 months?
It's 4,000 a month. Is that 100% of the salary?
Mm-hmm. I've not seen an invoice with that person's salary on it yet.
Yes, sir. It is. It includes all benefits, and I believe their payroll is processed by a third-party provider, so there are administrative fees as well. But that's a little bit more than what the monthly amount is. But we will only fund on a reimbursable basis, so it should be less than $4,000.
Okay.
I'm abstaining, not voting on this, but just for clarification, we're funding the entire salary of the reentry person?
Yes, sir. For 3 months.
Chief Powell, has that always been, has that always been the case?
Well, that individual was not listed previously.
Well, we have funded a lot more than that previously.
Yeah,
I don't know what all we funded previously, but.
Yeah, you were funding about $13,000 a month.
To answer your question, no, sir. This is only for the Pathway population. Has nothing to do with the rest of the population.
So we should be funding a portion of that, because it has just to do, this is a portion of it.
To what they bill us, sir, and how that's managed.
So, as Administrator Gilly just mentioned, we did used to fund almost $14,000 a month in salaries, not just for one position, but for a number of positions. So this is cutting their $14,000 a month down to $4,000. It'll be less than $4,000 on a reimbursable basis, but only for that one position. And it's just for the transitionary period, the 3-month transitionary period, from December 1st through February 28th.
Well, I mean, they're also operating on they've got a population that's less than 10% of their previous population too. So, I mean, there's a reason it's so much less. All right, and, okay. All right.
Okay.
And Mr. Chairman, did you hear the commissioner from District 3 will be abstaining?
Yeah, we're holding it for abstention.
30 is concerning a funding allocation to the Pensacola Downtown Improvement Board.
Commissioner May, have they talked to you about this?
We're dropping that. I'm not gonna be able to do
We're
that.
going to drop 30.
Yeah, that needs to be dropped. We're not gonna fund that.
Well, as serving on that board, I thought the board had the discussion that we weren't going to do it this year. Because of COVID? I think we want to make it a little bit more than just fireworks. But I know that I talked to Walker, and he said he's still talking to Mayor
Yeah,
Roberts.
it came in as a request, and we try to be supportive because, like you, I represent the city.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to support any large gatherings during COVID. And so that one got by. I mean, my reason, quite frankly, is I don't support large gatherings, and I'm not going to be an advocate of social distancing and support anything that brings a large group of people together. And I told him that.
And I did it last year, and that was part of the reason I didn't do it this year, so hopefully.
Well, unfortunately, you and I can't talk, so had
Right.
you been able to talk,
Yeah.
you could have told me to not process it.
Are they still doing it, though? Are they going to have the fireworks?
I don't know.
Then again, that was the discussion of the board, was that.
Yeah, I think they may be moving forward. I'm just not supporting it. I mean, you're welcome to support it, Jeff.
No, I just was wondering if it was still going to happen, given the uptick and stuff. Just
I think there's some question that the board had during our last meeting, but it was also, I think there was some discussion about trying to have it what it once used to be in terms of the New Year's Eve. With the drop and everything like that. And
maybe next year.
well, and I think that's the thing. They want to talk to some businesses and try to have it more of an event as opposed to just we're putting on fireworks. Yeah.
And I know the mayor, and Robert, I know not your chair, you probably speak with the mayor a little more than I do, but in my conversations with the mayor, he's trying to, the Christmas parade, to the Mardi Gras parade, to New Year's, he's trying to gather smaller gatherings in neighborhoods and neighborhood parades and little smaller fireworks things throughout the entire, to keep the big groups.
Yeah.
I know the mayor's working on that.
It is. I talked to him the
diligently.
other night, and
Is Mardi Gras still happening, though? I thought.
well,
Yeah, it is.
I think there's some right, and that's Commissioner May said is that
But what
Well-
they're trying to do, Jeff, is they're trying to break it up into smaller parades. You know, maybe have a parade in this neighborhood, one in East Hill, one on Scenic, one in Belmont. No, not
Right.
one big downtown gathering.
And I think part of that is that there are some people that are trying to do their own Christmas parades, and I think.
Oh, yeah, they're having them.
Ryan Wiggins is doing
Ryan
one in
Wiggins
East
with the
Hill,
golf
and-
carts
and,
is
and
having
yeah,
one.
good golf carts and go through everything, and I think it's I saw that it's grown is going to be a large. It'll be a large parade.
Well, Robert, I applaud the mayor for trying to break
Sure.
it down and have smaller groups and not have these large gatherings. But yeah, I did tell DIB that that one kind of.
Yeah, and actually, Walker just texted me, and he said that they are not having the fireworks at all this year, just to let the public know, and so it's so that they aren't doing the fireworks, and hopefully it gives the board a year to bring everybody together and try to have a big event next year, a big organized event. So
Yeah, I mean, coming out of the recovery, I mean, we should do something for our citizens. So.
Perfect.
Well, tell Walker Great. I didn't. He listens to Agenda Review. He got to be real busy.
All right, Sam.
31 is concerning a funding allocation to Pensacola High School Booster Club. 32 is concerning a funding allocation to WEAR, Communities Caring at Christmas.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to amend this tonight to add $2,500 from District 5 discretionary dollars.
Perfect.
Thanks, Commissioner Berry. I know that this has been a COVID and a tough time for donations, and WEAR and Sue Strong, they do such a good work. I typically don't give out large allocations like that, but the great work that they're doing and the need in all of Escambia County is great for this Christmas. So I appreciate you. I'm sure.
Lumen, I'm going to do 2,500 as well.
Oh, well, thank
Absolutely.
you.
Yeah,
They
please.
really need it. They do.
Yeah.
I think they've become the clearinghouse, the Toys for Tots at the fairground.
Yeah.
They're doing it at the fairground in your district,
Yeah.
but they were short this year. So I'm sure that WAR and Sue would certainly appreciate any help from any of our commissioners.
Maybe 17.5 will help him a little bit. So go ahead, dude.
You could do 2,500 too? Right on. Another 25 from Robert.
Well, good deal. Absolutely. Good stuff.
Sue had a good day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She can give a lot of toys.
She might be an angel in our midst. Can we nominate her for the next segment?
We got a good studio.
Mr. Chairman, just looking at the clock here, unfortunately, I do have to leave at about 20 till, if not a few minutes before
I think
that.
Commissioner Berry has to leave about 11:30.
Sure.
I was going to say, you want to just say we'll break at 11:30 wherever we are?
That would be good. And-
Sure.
And just so
We can,
people know, we've all read this, we've all had
Yep.
our debriefings with staff. I mean, so, thank you.
Well, I can go ahead and we can just go quickly then. We have 33 is Commissioner May's basketball team for for West Florida High School. I'm doing a 34 is a Veterans Memorial kiosk that I'm doing to replace the one that broke.
Do you need any more help with that?
No, sir. I think that was the entire cost of the. But I'm sure that they always have some needs. They, of course, the Gold Star Memorial that was just added is great, and so yeah. And then we have a EMS county grant application. We have a volunteer firefighter retention incentive pay.
I want to thank Director Rogers for that. I think that was a reasonable accommodation, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
I do too, yes. We do have the VFIS policy, which is the property, vehicles and equipment for the fire.
And I wanted to mention to Commissioner Burgash that this year the increase was about 10%. Last year, the increase was 17.9, so the increase, yes, sir. Yes, sir, there's still an
Thank you.
increase, but you
Thank
had
you for
asked that
following
last
up with
night.
that. That was a question I had.
Sir, I had it. It was, Jeff, some of it was property, about 10,000, I think, was property. And then, of course, adding the new fire trucks is going to add some cost to it. This is also the coverage that paid our harassment suit and is also covering our other current litigation at zero deductible.
Which is good. I mean, we're going to need it.
Yep. 39 is purchase orders in excess of 25,000 for waste services. 39 is Greenview turf maintenance, waste services. $40 is a change order to Thompson for their work during the Hurricane Sally. We have 41 is a certificate of need for diversified property works. 42 is our debris hauling contract change order for Hurricane Sally. Just see if there's anything else on here that we need to get to before any other discussion items or anything.
And there was quite a lot of discussion about those change orders, but I mean,
right,
it's an unexpected cost to the county, and it's anyway.
I'm glad we talked about it the other day for a while. I mean,
yeah.
And as I've mentioned before, Thompson and Pat Johnson are here. John Hoyle from Thompson and Pat Johnson are here. If there are any other more specific, detailed questions.
Perfect.
Will they be here this evening as well, in case there's questions from the audience, and there could be discussion from the board as well?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
44 is the JAG grant award for Bulletproof Vest funding.
I hope you don't need it inside the jail, but of course we're going to support it.
We have a recommendation, the second of two possible renewals for resolicitation special magistrate. We have recommendation concerning the U.S. Treasury Department notice of award, amount of $1,217,000 for 11 Mile Creek Stream Restoration Design Project. 47, recommendation concerning Florida DEP grant amendment for Bayou Chico. .48 is the lease agreement for copiers for court admin. .49 is concerning purchase of equipment for VoIP telephone project. So I want to at least give a shout out to Bart for his sourcing of those. And then I think we actually had some add-ons. Commissioner Barry, I know you had one that came in yesterday. I want to have a little discussion on that for the Restore pot. I know that you all probably wouldn't have known this, but in January, we were going to have a little bit of an update on that. And typically, you know, Chips, do you want to come up and talk about typically the process and seeing if we're trying to group some of these together and maybe get some additional ones that we can add to it, just following what we've historically done, and then that way everything's running at the same time, so.
Sure. Commissioner, as you recall, in the past, the last two times that we've added projects to the Pot 1 funding, the board has discussed those projects, and each commissioner contributed one or two projects because there is about a 9-month process to amend the multi-year implementation plan. There's a 90-day public comment period that's required, and then that plan has to be submitted to Treasury for their approval. So what we've done in the past, the last two times that we've added projects, we've added several projects at the same time. And as you mentioned, I talked to Commissioner Gilley about having a presentation ready for the Committee of the Whole in January to provide you with an update on the projects that we're working on now. And at that time, maybe that'd be a good time to talk about new projects also.
And I apologize, it's actually CAR 3-4. I thought it was added to 2, and I didn't see it, but was hoping we'd be able to get through that in January and go through that process if that works, or.
If what you're saying is not take the action today and add the project to the pool in January, that's all right. That's fine.
Okay. I appreciate that. I think just some other. I don't want to delay that, and.
Well, if it wasn't coming up in January, we wouldn't delay it. But that's all right. January's all right.
All right. CAR 3-1 is LET funds from the sheriff. We also have recommendation concerning professional liability, medical malpractice insurance for the jail. As you can see, this has been something that has been very difficult to secure. We've been somewhat going month to month. There are just not any vendors that are doing this coverage. I've got one other that I'm trying to track down, but it requires some approval for us to use. But it's looking like we may have to self-insure this, and for.
So what do other counties do? I mean, we're not the only county in the state that's got a jail, so.
There aren't many.
The sheriff's office have to have it too. I mean, regardless of who. I mean, I don't mean the county runs it. I just mean or the majority of counties in the jail or the counties in the state have a jail. I can't believe the majority of them are self-insured. There have to be some people in the market.
Commissioner Barry, I can speak to it a little. I do know, because we did vet out to other agencies to see what they were doing. There are other agencies that are experiencing similar problems, but there is a difference in that they have current existing contracts that aren't about to expire. I think there's just been some stuff as of late, recent events in the public that have caused people to kind of shy, or insurance adjusters kind of shy away from this.
Part of it is that we're trying to essentially purchase a single policy, so we don't have a liability policy for the overall jail we do have a GL policy there, but we don't have. They would typically like to package it with other policies that we don't purchase. And again, to put it in context, I think when I first came in about 6 years ago, I think we were getting this policy for $10,000, and it was $7,500 deductible, and it's gone up to $75,000 deduct. I mean, it's specifically this type of policy is, and Madam Administrator just handed out the list of companies that declined with their reasoning. Of course, as you can see, some of them they'll say our loss history which we've had pretty good loss history as of late, but sometimes in the business, it takes them a long time to forget.
They write a couple big checks.
Right. But no, what I'm seeing is looking at the Florida Sheriff's Association, seeing what they may have that we typically, as an agency, wouldn't have access to. It would take going through the Sheriff's Association.
What about DMS? DMS doesn't have anything? When we look there?
Not,
So that's separate. That is a completely separate contracted thing, and I think that was what Commissioner Bender was trying to make the point of. Instead of piecemealing everything like that, is trying to bring stuff under one umbrella. It is actually more cost efficient. We ran the numbers with USI to go self-funded, and Allison, correct me if I'm wrong, per statute, isn't there a $200,000 cap?
So, and I did speak with Commissioner Burgash about this a little bit last night. So medical malpractice in Florida is considered a tort, and so it does enjoy sovereign immunity cap protection if it's medical malpractice. As you know, that's currently $200 per person, $300,000 per incident. If you remember, just last year, the legislature was entertaining the idea of some bills to up that cap, which is what the trial lawyers groups are trying to get them to do. But it does enjoy the sovereign immunity caps. That said, what concerns me, and we've had a little bit of experience with this, is when a medical treatment situation gets intertwined with what ends up being a civil rights claim.
Yeah.
And when that happens, you lose the cap. So what I did tell Mark Bartlett last night, look, if you're entertaining the self-insurance option, please make sure you look at your other products to ensure one of them has the civil rights protection for jail medical situations, because we have had at least one recent settlement that was related to that situation.
and we could see about an XX position. I mean, and I haven't talked to them about it, but I can talk to Mark about it.
And
Yeah,
Mark
isn't that
will
always-
be here tonight to answer additional questions.
Isn't that always a factor? I mean, when we say self-insured, we're not fully, I mean, we're not self-insured, entirely. I mean, we have, excess or, umbrella coverages over a certain amount that, protect us against catastrophic things. I mean, and I would think that a civil rights claim is potentially a catastrophic thing.
It depends on what it is. We currently don't have liability coverage for, so for instance, we don't carry GL policy in the event that there was somehow gross negligence where the state legislator could award something over the 200, 300. We don't carry that.
The claims bills.
Right.
They had traditionally been so rare that it's, do you insure against everything kind of idea?
I mean, I don't know, I would think that with the propensity for cover, or propensity for need would be very small, but, so I would think it would be very inexpensive for $5,000 or $10,000 if we could protect against something that would be potentially catastrophic. That would seem like an okay thing. We don't, things seem to be going better in the jail, but we, as has been referenced, we have had some problems.
Well,
to put it kindly, we've had some problems.
We have, but it's not just us. We've actually done well compared to the rest of the country. And I think the other thing is as what we were seeing was that the times have changed, would be the best way to say it a little bit. Yeah. That before you weren't seeing $1 million judgments, $1 million+ judgments in a jail med mal case. Now they're more commonplace.
Well,
and so that means that's how the insurance companies quickly got turned upside down, and
Well, I think candidly, there's some societal aspects to that too. I think for some period of time, maybe people that were incarcerated weren't, their lives weren't valued in the same way that other lives were valued.
And that yes, exactly. And throw on top of that though that they're more. They're probably more likely to have health issues and things like that, and more likely to be litigious. They bow out.
And so my druthers, and I expressed this with Allison last night, is to have this coverage in place. I mean, if we can get it, I see that the premiums have gone way up, but it just takes one or two of those $800,000 specials, and if we could be exposed. So anyway, but it is kind of amazing and incredible to me to look at this, the number of declines that we've had from all these companies. I mean, Something
So this
something to think
practice
about.
that's at the top, they were, it
Something to
says a
think
waiting
about.
paper, so what happened was they were trying to get on paper, and the company that was going to help facilitate it, the president decided at the last minute, like, no, I'm done. And so that's why we've had to do an about face and why we were doing this monthly.
The best deal on this chart is that 400 grand?
From Iron Shore, yep.
Yeah.
And that's still a 250,000 SIR. So we'd still be responsible for the first 250 of any claim.
God, wow.
Yeah, Madam Attorney, do you have anything, or Madam Minister, do you have anything you want to say on the CARES real quick?
I feel like we've laid it out very clearly for you all, but please let us know if you have any questions about what we've done in terms of our reporting and in terms of how we are managing the funds that we currently have to get expended. And we did ask you for 3 additional approvals. One of them is to complete the business grants that we did have approval. If you remember, we had an amount. Y'all were able to reduce that amount some. So we did have a little bit of a delta of approved grants and lack of funding from your approval. We did ask for, I think I've mentioned to you all about the Snowball Derby issue with Pensacola Sports. And then we also had the cleaning.
What was that?
So it was for what they did was they used imaging machines so that to protect the attendees at the event.
They were still packed in there like sardines. But
And by the way, that was greatly appreciated. I mean, the folks that attended the Snowball Derby, I understand that was a very helpful tool there. And a lot of folks didn't know that happened. And that was directly.
Not just that, but also we didn't necessarily grant approval for the event. It's not something that had a permit. Right. It didn't come in front of our board.
That too.
So I got an email about it. And so we, of course, would, as with any event, the governor's allowing those, and hopefully everyone takes the precautions, and we did have help with putting in the machines to help scan people, so. Okay.
Madam Administrator, I have one question before we adjourn.
Sure.
So the books for fiscal year 20, for everything related to CARES, there's still going to be a lot of adjustments for the fiscal year that we're in, but is the thought that the 20 numbers are set and there won't be adjustments back to the way we've accounted for 20?
So Amber, I don't know if you want to answer that.
That's
But what we did, so.
That's loaded.
Yeah. What we did is we did go back and do an amendment to recognize those funds in 20 in the previous year, so that we would be able to
Some
expend.
portion, or at least what was received at that time. I know, and that's what I'm saying. So that's not the full, we haven't accounted for the full CARES allocation in the fiscal year 2020.
Not the full.
So, but for what we did in for what we have accounted for the year ended September 30, are we comfortable that those numbers are the numbers?
There could be some more adjustments, but what I would say is that I think we tried very hard to go back and capture all of those expenditures, like those public health and
Yeah.
safety salaries. So we did try and go back and have you all approve that so that it would already be in that accounting.
And I guess that's specifically what I'm saying. We accounted for, I don't know, half dozen or so specifically, specific reimbursed salaries and wages lines, and costed it out over a handful of areas. But we're comfortable that the stuff we did that closed September 30, 2020, that's going to stick for the most part. And the amendments are then going to be, or the changes that may have to come in the future are going to be for the current fiscal year, not for the previous.
I would think so. It would. Yeah. So do you want to answer that? Because we did have to make some changes to make sure that we could expend, as you know, all the funds. So we did have to recognize the 20.
Right. But
Yes.
We over budgeted. We overestimated the budget that we needed appropriated for fiscal 20 so that we would be within statutory compliance requirements, so that we didn't exceed our spending authority at the fund level. So there is still a little bit of movement. That's what Liz was just whispering to me, but we still expect that we are within the budget that is appropriated for fiscal 20. Does that answer?
Yeah, I mean, I get that. Are we still making changes to the period 13 numbers for the fiscal year 2020, or no?
There's minor movement.
Okay.
So because we have a pool of money, we went over $15 million what we reported to CARES. The idea is if some of our commitments fall short, that we will pull in some more public health and safety payroll, and that might affect it.
Okay.
But we will not know that until
January 1st.
So, okay, are we still going to be able to true up numbers and have the CAFR stuff for January, February, that timeframe? All that
For
stuff?
20?
Okay. Yes.
Yes, our
Okay,
goal
okay.
is, yes, sir, for 20.
Okay, all right, super, thank you.
This is it runs over fiscal years, so your true-up really happens in '21. So 20 stops, it is what it is. 21, and then they will do a look back on CARES from July 1, when they sent you the money, all the way forward to the December 31st cutoff. But since I have the microphone, I'd like to tell you something. We are inundated, wrong word. We are getting hit with a lot of fraud. It's Christmas time, a lot of CARES Act checks, a lot. I mean, to the point Bank of America is calling me personally going, at home, we're getting hit. But they're seeing it throughout the nation. I would like to ask your directors, your staff, you all, if you hear something, bring it to my attention. Find one of my staff members, because we are trying to do so many preventive maintenance issues right now. We're a little overwhelmed.
When you say a lot, I mean, is it like 5 or 10% fraud, or is it a bigger number?
It's daily. It's daily. It could be 5 checks, 5 hits on fraud. We could get a tip on certain duplicates and households. There's things that go to the sheriff's office. It's a lot going on right now, on top of what we're already doing. It's just.
Do you think you're catching the majority of them, Pam? Because I know Clara is stressed out on it, and so.
We're all stressed out.
Well, and I would like to say something.
Are we catching it? Or do you think we're catching most of it, Pam?
We're okay right now. We have certain controls in place. We have heightened controls with the bank looking at things and calling us, and who's supposed to be checking reports, and how we answer calls, what information we give on calls. I've had to direct all of my court staff to help with what's going on the comptroller side, because phone calls are going there. Pam Childers, let's call their administrative staff, my civil.
My office is inundated.
Okay, we're all feeling it.
Yeah, I mean,
If you hear
99.
something really weird or, please call me.
Well, just wait till they start coming to your house, and then the next day they end up dead. So, so you can't go to Tom Thumb, you can't go anywhere. So I feel your pain, Pam. So whatever we can do, we can do it.
Thank you for hearing me.
Yeah, and Allison and I have discussed consequential after, what we
Yes.
would do later down the road.
For the county staff, I would say that cases that are obvious and documented that are clearly problematic, when they get to that point, bring them to me and I'll be dealing with those.
And then I did just want to mention that, Commissioner May, you did mention Clara. Clara has had folks, for lack of a better term, threaten her personally, and that is just not acceptable.
Absolutely.
So I want to let you know that we will not be tolerating that. So you may hear from some disgruntled people if they continue that.
Oh, they're all disgruntled. Yeah,
I know, I'm sorry.
And we've all been threatened. You're absolutely right, and it's unfair for what Claire's doing. And some people are just not grateful, and we can't legislate morality, but it is a shame. So, Pam, I support you in going after anybody. Because, Madam Administrator, I can say from your assistants down to our summer youth workers, they have worked tirelessly, 10, 12 hours a week. I come down on Saturdays, they're here. They come down on Sundays, they're here. They're working 10 to 12 hours, and some of these people are barely making ends meet themselves, but they're helping other people. So I think that the community should be very grateful to the efforts that staff has put into trying to make this happen. And to Debbie and her business side and some of the businesses, it's going the extra call of duty is wonderful, but it's unfortunate that some people are not appreciative. They think that it's a right and not a privilege to receive these funds.
Perfect. Anything else? Adjourn.